Is it in there?
That's what I got it from.
Oh, okay.
Well, good evening, commissioners. Good evening. We'll begin tonight's meeting, and I just wanted to say that it's great to see so many folks from the public here this evening. The city commission meeting or the town hall meeting is the basis for democracy in our country. We're elected to make policy and set budgets and set vision, and the public can come right in and give us a piece of their mind on whatever issue we're dealing with, and that's a good thing. So it's wonderful to see so many folks here, and it's always a pleasure to do this work with you and this group of commissioners. We'll begin with a word of prayer, and then we'll honor our flags. Heavenly Father, we praise you this evening. Thank you for the many blessings and gifts that you give us each day. We thank you for the wonderful community that you've blessed us all with. Thank you for the privilege of living, working, and serving here. We pray that you would bless families and businesses, and that you would pour out your blessing, that there would be abundant health and prosperity in Clovis and our region. And Lord, we thank you for the privilege of serving our community as commissioners and as mayor, and we pray that you would bless us this evening with wisdom, and that we would make great choices and be good stewards of the city's resources. I pray these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Please join me in honoring our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. This city commission meeting is called to order. Will the clerk please call roll?
Commissioner Burns.
Here.
Commissioner Elliott.
Here.
Commissioner Garza.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Bryant.
Here.
Commissioner Madrid.
Here.
Commissioner Casaus. Commissioner Rowley.
Here.
Commissioner Parler.
Here.
Mayor Morris.
Here. Thank you, Ms. Burrows. Next is the approval of the agenda. Commissioners, you've had the opportunity to review tonight's agenda. Do you recommend rearranging or removing any of the items? Or is there a motion to approve the agenda as it's printed?
If staff don't have any changes to the agenda, then I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve from Commissioner Garza, second from Mayor Pro Tem Bryant. What is before you is the approval of tonight's agenda. Commissioners, please vote. And the vote is unanimous. The motion is carried and our agenda has been approved. Next is approval of minutes. Commissioners, in your packet are the minutes from the Thursday, November 4th, 2021 meeting. If you've had a chance to review those, I wonder, do you have any corrections that you would bring up, or is there a motion to approve the minutes as they are printed?
Move for approval.
Second. Motion to approve from Commissioner Garza, and the second came from Commissioner Elliott. What is before you is the approval of the Thursday, November 4th, 2021 minutes. Commissioners, please vote. And the vote is 8-0, and the motion is carried. Next is recognition of visitors. We have several visitors here this evening joining us in person, and I understand even perhaps joining by phone or by video conference. We welcome you at tonight's meeting. We look forward to hearing from you when we reach the point in the agenda that you're here to share with us. We have no proclamations, awards, or presentations tonight. That's odd. We usually do. I'm sure we'll have plenty next time. Next is receipts of petitions and communications, and we have one presentation planned there this evening, and so we will start with that, and then if you're here to share anything with the commission after the presentation from Ogallala Land and Water Conservancy, we will open up that opportunity for you. But with Ogallala Land and Water Conservancy report, we have the administrator of that organization, Dr. Clayton, here with us this evening. Dr. Clayton is, of course, a former city commissioner, and so we welcome you back into this room and before this commission. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor Morris. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Chris Bryant. And thank you, commissioners. It feels like home. of it tonight. And it's so good to see some familiar faces and new faces as well. So the first thing I wanted to do is just start off by telling you my personal words of appreciation. Thank you for standing behind the decision that you made. I know it was a difficult decision, but it means so much to see the City Commission support the Ogallala, not necessarily straight to the Ogallala Land and Water Conservancy, but to the Central Curry Soil and Water Conservation District, and then we become that execution arm for them to make some really important plans become a reality here in the city of Clovis and Curry County. So I just want to tell you how much I appreciate not only that you supported us, but that you're continuing to support us. So I wanted to thank personally this evening to the city manager, Mr. Howalt. Thank you, Mr. Howalt. I don't know if you're in the room. Okay. Well, if you would thank him for me, please, Mrs. Burrows, as well as you. I'd like to say thank you because the process has been so smooth so far in working with the city, and I have received nothing but absolute support, and that makes all the difference. I appreciate the support of Mayor Morris, and the work is just definitely easier when you have that level of support. So thank you so much. With that, I'll ask, are you going to control these slides? Where is it at?
They're over there. Just say next slide.
Oh, you will. Okay, you will. Okay. So I want to start just with the next slide, the Master Water Assurance Plan. The only reason I'm revisiting this is because I think it's important to talk a bit about what this really means overall to the Ogallala Land and Water Conservancy. Naturally, this is the city's plan. So the city passed this plan in December 2017. I was a part of that initiative at the time. And I recall us talking about how this is about comprehensive conservation. And that's a very important concept I wanted to unpack for just a moment, is these plans, all 5 of them, are synchronous. We always saw them working together, and that each one was important, and not one of them is more important than the other. And I wanted to really highlight that because all of these things are coming into place now. And I see the Ogallala Land and Water Conservancy as doing the things in parentheses. We are a part of those 3 things, and it's not that you're not doing Playa Lake restorations, you are. You have been involved in that, but we definitely will be in the paleo channels in time. But we are creating and have created a conservation land and water trust. That was one of the 5 plans that now is coming to fruition. Securing available water in the paleo channels, we are in the process of making that happen. That was another plan. And thirdly, the one I mentioned about Playa Lake restorations. Naturally, the city's been involved, and even before this plan was created, the city was already involved in effluent water reuse. And the inroads that you have made are incredible and so critical as a part of this comprehensive conservation package. So you have saved an inordinate amount of water, groundwater that is, by using the reuse water. And then, of course, the Ute Water Pipeline Project. We have always believed in that project. We've always stood behind it. We still do today. We understand it's essential. It is essential to this entire equation. We're counting on it. And we only see ourselves as coming in with you side by side and creating a supplemental water resource to supplement as needed, and only when needed, the Ute Water Pipeline, water that's being made available from the reservoir. So I just wanted to highlight that this evening and be sure that I gave each one of those plans some attention, recognition, and how they are working together, and each one is absolutely vital. What we want to be able to say we did, and we're doing it, is we are not leaving any stone unturned in the Clovis-Curry County area. We are making sure that we're availing ourselves of every available water resource we can to have water security for long-term benefits. Naturally, the Ogallala Land and Water Conservancy is definitely working with Canon, with the REPI project, and working with the RCPP project. We understand that there has to be a long-term resiliency for the mission of Cannon Air Force Base, and that we're very proud to be able to say that we're joining with the city and the county in making that happen, as well as Central Curry Soil and Water Conservation District. That we're all working together, I think, is what excites me most, and that inspires me as being the executive director of this entity. So what I wanted to do is, next slide, I think it went backwards. If you can take me forwards. Okay, there you go. Thank you so much. I just wanted to give you an overview of what we've accomplished, because I think it's important for us to constantly be held accountable to all of you for what we're doing, and are we honoring the contract that we have with Central Soil and Water Conservation District, and the contract that you have with them as they work with us to make that happen. So I would like to say these are just basics. I'm not going to go through all of them. I just want you to see what we've accomplished in getting the foundational documents in place. Our legal documents listed here are all in place and being implemented. And honestly, our board of directors has played such a key role in leading the charge. We have an exceptional board with the Ogallala Land and Water Conservancy. I'm very proud of the work they're doing and honored to be a part of it. So these are some items that have been accomplished. In the next slide. We've done this list of items as well. We've even gotten our initial corporate report already filed. Our CRS identification number is in place. In progress right now is a 501c3. I was asked to write the narrative for that document. That's the first time I've ever done it, and I learned a lot. So that was a really challenging but rewarding experience, and it's now in the hands of Peter Nichols, our attorney. It's being finished up and submitted. Next slide. We set up our checking account with the Citizens Bank of Clovis, and I wanted to be sure that I explained that we had to establish a line of credit. What happened for the Ogallala is that we have no startup money. So although we have 2 contracts that we can make ourselves, or that are available to us through the CCS-WCD, those contracts can only be accessed, the money from them, through a reimbursement process. So we spend what we need to spend, and then we submit an invoice to the Central Curry SWCD, and then they submit it to either the city or the county. And I'm going to give you an accounting of what we've done so far. But we did establish a $50,000, it's called a line of credit, which is basically a loan, in order to have money to even operate. We only drew down $20,000 from that $50,000 amount, and we've been able to function only with that $20,000 thus far. We're really watching all of the spending to stay within the least amount of borrowed money possible. Now, our understanding is in time, it will, I believe that Curry County is going to look at giving us an advance so that we don't have that borrowed money we're paying interest on, because it is, you know, I feel always very responsible about that in regards to paying interest on money that I know the taxpayers have made possible for us. So that will come in time. Next slide. These are our personnel and contracted services. Hinkle and Landers are our CPAs. They're doing an exceptional job, and I cannot believe all the work that's been accomplished with them already, from a very comprehensive chart of accounts to establishing Bill.com, to setting up our payroll, to setting up the QuickBooks. Everything's in place and everything is flowing now. We are moving fast. Peter Nichols, of course, as you know, you've worked with him, talked with him. That's our law firm. And then they hired me on October 1st. So to be standing here today to give you a progress report, I haven't been here very long, but a lot has truly been accomplished in a short period of time. Next slide. We have new offices I wanted to make you aware of. Don DeMore had purchased the Don Pool office building out on North Prince, and I do have a relationship with Don and Linda DeMore and had a conversation with them, and they were just a wonderful offer for the Ogallala to have 2 offices. We have access to a conference room and all the other amenities there. And then the Legacy Church donated all of our furniture. So all the furniture that I needed, I have for the offices. And then Mark Lansford donated the file cabinets to David Lansford, who then donated them to us. So I wanted to report that because that's how careful, really, we're trying to be. And I feel good about that. We didn't go spend those dollars. I'm using my own personal computer. There were funds in the budget for me to buy a computer. I chose not to do that. There are funds to do another cell phone. I chose not to do that. So right now, we're keeping that spending really low, and I'm just really proud to report that. Next slide. Our Mentoring Land Trust. I've been in conversation with all three of these individuals, Chad, Rebecca, and Billy. I have a meeting in the morning at 9 a.m. with Chad Ellis. Jeff Davis will be joining me for that meeting for sure. We're going to be talking about the real nuts and bolts now of what it's going to look like if there are mentoring land trusts. And that's a very important conversation because I know it's already been explained to you that we have to have that mentoring trust until we have 10 land acquisitions or conservation easement acquisitions in place. Palmer Land Conservancy will be meeting with me after Thanksgiving. Rebecca Jewett has a very, very busy schedule, but she could meet with me on November 29th. And I meet with Billy Van Pelt. And again, Jeff will be joining me with that one. And actually with all of these meetings, American Farmland Trust on Monday. Now, American Farmland Trust works very closely with the Texas Agricultural Land Trust. So I'm sure there's going to be a benefit for us, an extra resource of benefit because of that partnership. Next slide. I really believe in accountability 100%. I hold myself to a very high standard. Documentation is key, especially with an entity like this. Our accountability to the city, to the county, to the CCSWCD. So I maintain all timesheets. I haven't kept a timesheet, I'm going to be honest, in 32 years, okay? I haven't, but now I'm very diligent about maintaining my timesheet, my hours, clocking them down, holding myself accountable in what categories I'm working, and I submit those bi-weekly. Does the city get those? Yes, I'm submitting them to the CCSWCD, and they give them then to you. Same with the county. I keep a detailed monthly invoice of services. I produced the first one to meet our contractual obligation to the CCSWCD and to the city and the county. That's already been provided. It was extensive. It is very detailed. I made sure that it met the requirements, and I was told that it did. We'll continue to do that. By the first day of every month, I will provide that report. So the next one coming will be December 1st. And then I constantly keep a running total of dollars spent for city and county. I keep a very detailed account so I know that I've invoiced for the city to the Central Curry Soil and Water Conservation District. This was for the city. This was for the county. I make sure we never duplicate any charge and that I'm keeping within currently no greater than $30,000 for the city, $30,000 for the county, because I have to work with procurement. So and to ensure that I meet the procurement code, I can spend no more than $60,000 currently out of the Ogallala until the sole source is approved. So the Central Curry Soil and Water Conservation District did submit a sole source, and I'm really pleased to say that yesterday would have been the 15th day of opportunity for someone to actually contest that or challenge that and to state that we were not actually the only source that could do this, and that did not occur. So that's a yes. And then we are good to go as of December 2nd, because it does have to stay posted for 30 days up on the State Purchasing Division's website. Next slide. Now, this is where I wanted to show you just an overview of invoices. Those asterisks to the left, that ordinarily would have shown you how much has actually been reimbursed at this point, but as of today, all of the money has been reimbursed. That's how quickly and efficiently the city and the county and CCSWCD are doing the work, very efficiently. So we're back to square one, and I have $20,000 that I started with back in my account. So that's great news. But I wanted you to see This is how I line it out, and I can, if you have any questions about what each one of those are, I have it all written down. It was just a lot of information to put up there. But primarily, the overview would be you see legal fees there, you see Hinkle and Landers got paid for accounting, you see that my payroll has been paid, and then we have some other expenses that had to be reimbursed because a couple of people paid up front for things before we had any money at all, and we just made sure they got reimbursed for, like, setting up the articles of incorporation and our EIN number, things of that nature. So as of today, nothing's owed, and that shows you exactly how much the city has paid for and the county has paid for with available funds left. And so you can see we're well under the $30,000 per entity. Any questions on that at this point? Okay.
No questions.
No questions? Great. Next slide. Professional development. I attended the National Land Conservation Conference with the Land Alliance. Incredible virtual conference. It was so beneficial. I gained resources beyond resources. I did not know they were going to make so many things available for me to download and capture. I have 114 resources of great value in my computer, and I'm working my way through them. So there's a lot of training data in there, but also a lot of templates that were already created for us that we're going to be using in the transaction process. I have those. I learned from those, from different entities who had learned by error how to do land conservation easements, and that was beneficial. So there was just a great conference. I definitely will be attending that annually. I attended the recent Climatic Region 4 Eastern Plains webinar, learned a lot from that. They talked about the 50-year plan, but also what we're facing in this region and what's ahead. And I can just say that what we're doing is so important given what that report showed. I want to go next to the 2022 All Access Pass. The Land Trust Alliance does provide a plethora of resources that you can go and watch webinars. You can get training. You just have to pay $500 annually for that pass to access all of those resources. Definitely going to be worth our investment. I intend to do that. And then we've made the decision, the board, and I certainly agree that I should become a certified procurement officer, so I'm already signing up for the training February 15th through the 18th. And I will complete that and I will pass the test and get my certification. Next slide. Grants, you're already aware of what we have right now. The REPI grant stands at $2.3 million. It's currently awarded, but also when it's awarded, it's like they can touch those dollars now. We're not waiting any period of time. They're available right now today, whereas the RCPP money at $6.9 million is not yet available, but will be available. The Playa Lakes Joint Venture ConocoPhillips Capacity Grant, I just wanted you to know we did apply for that. We were hoping to be awarded that grant. It would have gotten us $30,000 a year of additional funds, but we did not get awarded that grant. Interestingly enough, the Texas Agricultural Land Trust got that award. And within their grant, it says that they're going to work with us. And that was part of what they proposed to get the grant award, is that they would mentor and be a resource for us. So we're still going to gain benefit from that. And then that last one, which is probably new, it's new to me, the Thornburg Foundation, we're working on that as we speak, looking at what would be available from them. And I want to thank former Senator Clint Hardin, who also sits on our OLWC board, for the work he's doing to help us get funding from there. It could be significant. And I've already put a proposal together, I've already submitted a pre-proposal, and it's currently in the hands of the right people. We'll continue to seek other grants. I'm doing research for those grants and determining where we can acquire additional funds as we move forward. And the next slide. Here are just the priorities. I just wanted to be sure that I went over them quickly with you this evening. Naturally, to engage in extensive training. I've been doing that since my feet, I think before they hit the ground, maybe. I hit the ground October 1st, but honestly, even before I applied for the position, I began to start doing some research and looking and being sure that I was proactive in case I was hired for the position. network with well-established accredited land trust, and we're doing that. We're building a bigger network. Peter Nichols is working on additional contacts for me as we speak as well, and he's setting up meetings with these other land trusts that have that kind of knowledge, so I'm looking forward to that. And then, of course, I already told you about getting a mentoring land trust in place. Next slide. The really important work then is to collaborate with each landowner with irrigated cropland and the paleo channels to place meters on all center pivots so that we can begin to measure water output. Most important to us, number one, we're putting our absolute focus on this because there are other things that await us, but this is number one priority, is we've got to execute water right lease agreements with these landowners to shut the pumping down, to shut the water off so that we can stop the depletion as quickly as possible. Right now, we've set July 2022 as our deadline. We really hope to get that in place by then. And next slide. We want to complete a study on well performance and static water levels, do a hydrological assessment of those 2 paleo channels, and then just determine these items: the saturated thickness of the aquifer, the pump depths, and the depth of the red bed. So these are things that have to be done in the field. A lot of that work will be done through the REPI dollars, and some may be done through the RCPP. Next slide. Cease pumping groundwater on irrigated farmland in the paleo channels once the leases are finalized to maintain and secure those essential resources. So that's really the outcome of that work, is just to cease pumping that groundwater. And then, of course, we'll be moving, as you know, then to dryland cropping or grazing, helping in that transition period. And I can't say enough about our landowners, because what we're getting ready to ask them to do is so significant. This is a lifetime change for these landowners. Their willingness to want to do this, it's a voluntary call for them to consider and then agree to allow us to stop the pumping and to secure that water. And so they're really laying their livelihood as they've always known it down, and some of them are 3 generations of farming out there and more. And so I don't take it lightly that they're willing to do this. Will we be compensating them for that water? Yes, we will. We'll be doing conservation easements. We'll be looking at land values and assets in the water. But at the same time, it's a complete change for them when they could just keep doing what they've always done, but they're willing to make that change for the sake of a city and a county and making that water source available. And final slide. I just always do believe this statement is very simple, but water is life. It sustains our life, and we've got to have it. It's necessary for our day-to-day existence in all different realms. And I just stand for any questions you may have now.
Dr. Clayton, thank you for
Yes.
for being here this evening and updating us on the progress. And we, of course, are cheering on the Ogallala Land and Water Conservancy. And, you know, its success is our success. And you said something to the effect in your lead-in that we need to be doing everything, and
Yes.
that it's all important, right?
It
These
is.
aren't competing projects. These
No.
aren't competing issues. We need to be doing all of them. And thank you for the update. I'm not sure if you mentioned the board members by name.
I
And
didn't, but thank you for
Let's
that.
do that. Let's remind
Okay.
the commissioners and the public who the board members are.
Okay. Our president is David Lansford, and he's here this evening. Our vice president is Mark Carpenter. And then the other members are Clint Harden, which I mentioned earlier. And we also have naturally Spencer Pipkin. We have 2 Curry County members, Central Curry Soil and Water Conservation District members. And that's Spencer Pipkin. I mentioned Clint Harden. And then from Curry County, we have we have Robert Thornton, who's the chair of that commission. And then, of course, we're also delighted to have Mayor Morris on there representing the city. We have a strong board.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. And thanks, Mayor Lansford, for being here this evening, for your work on the project. And I wanted to mention also with you is Mr. Jeff Davis,
Yes.
which is, of course, very important for this effort because he's been lead on the REPI application, which is
Absolutely.
a major component of the project. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here and for your work on this as well. Commissioners, questions or comments for Dr. Clayton?
Dr. Clayton, I have just one question.
Okay.
How many landowners are you hoping that will participate in this?
All 11 in those paleo channels.
That would be great.
Yes, it would.
I've got a question, Dr. Clayton.
Yes.
I apologize, I'm relatively new to all of these discussions, so just to clarify, the money that you'll be using for this project is coming from the federal government? There's not any local taxpayer money involved?
That's correct as far as what we're doing out in the actual paleo channels, all of that work, the big expenses are all federal dollars, but the local money is actually just supporting the Conservancy operational expenses. So there are some local taxpayer dollars at play, $150,000 from the city, $150,000 from the county, and that's allocated by contract to Central Curry Soil and Water Conservation District, who then hired us.
Sounds like quite a bargain. Next question. I noticed that, you know, the pipeline is to benefit multiple communities in eastern New Mexico. And how does this tie into that? I noticed the other communities are not paying part of the membership fee to be a part of this.
Commissioner, if you mean, how does it, the water we're going to?
Yes.
Okay, it will only be for Clovis and Curry County.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Other questions or comments? Dr. Clayton, thank you.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
you being here. We look forward to hearing more about the progress next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Commissioners, we're still in receipts of petitions and communications, so I would invite anyone from the public that has anything that you want to share with us this evening that you would like to bring before the commission. Now is the time. Good evening, sir. If we could have your name and address for the record,
Okay, my
then we'll
name
give
is
you the floor.
Shane May. I live at 220 Weatherford Street, and I just wanted to make sure it says that I can request. I think this is the time for me to do this. If I'm off base here, let me know, please. But there's an item on the agenda for the consent agenda, item number 6, which is basically the same thing as my item. Which is number 2 on the introduction of resolutions and ordinances. And I would like that item to be taken off the consent agenda and discussed when mine is, please. Because they're both basically parallel. They were just a few blocks down the road from each other. And hers got an unanimous approval, and mine, through my proxy people that were here, was denied. And I would like to discuss those both together, please.
Okay, well, we'll pull it off so that it can be discussed, but they will be
That's
discussed
fine,
separately.
sure,
Yes,
I
sir.
understand.
Yes, sir. We'd be glad to do that.
Thank you.
We'll take item 6 out of the consent agenda and move it to, we will make it, just a moment here. We'll make it item 2 under ordinances, and then just shuffle everything down, if that's all right. Anyone else from the public that has something they'd like to bring before the commission this evening? Yes, Mr. Bernard, come on up. Even though we all know you, we need your name and address for the record.
My name's Rocky Bernard, and I live at 2225 Lana Staccato. And hello, Mayor and Commissioners. I have a problem. I don't know if this is the right time to address the sign issue. Is it not now?
It's on our agenda this evening.
Okay, so don't address it yet.
Right.
If that's all right, if you could just wait, it is on our agenda
My bad.
to discuss this evening. Yes, sir. That's all good. That's all good. Once again, is there anyone from the public that has something they'd like to share before the commission? Hearing and seeing none, we will we will move on, Commissioners, to the consent agenda. As you know, this item is placed on the agenda so that the commission, by unanimous consent, can designate those routine agenda items that they wish to approve or acknowledge by one motion. If any proposal does not meet with all, or with the approval of all commission members, or if a member of the public requests, that item will be heard when reached under the regular agenda. Of course, that exact thing has occurred this evening, and so now your consent agenda has 6 items on it. The first is the motion to place. The 6th would be the motion to approve or acknowledge. So I'll read the items to you. Item 2 is request for approval of adoption of resolution number 3097-2021 DFA budget changes. Item 3, request for approval of agreement number A21F2016 between the Aging and Long-Term Services Department and the City of Clovis in the amount of $31,034 for purchase of an HVAC unit for the Curry Resident Senior Meals Association. Item 4, request for approval of lodgers tax disbursements, November 2021. Item 5, request for approval to reappoint Gilbert Salguero to serve on the Parks, Recreation, and Beautification Committee. Commissioners, that is your consent agenda. I would entertain a motion to place the indicated items on the consent agenda by unanimous vote.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to place these items on the consent agenda from Commissioner Casal, second from Commissioner Garza. Commissioners, please vote. And by a vote of 8-0, the motion is carried. It is, of course, unanimous, so I would now entertain a motion to approve or acknowledge all items on the consent agenda.
I move to approve. Second.
Motion to approve from Commissioner Madrid, second from Mayor Pro Tem Bryant. What is before you is the approval of the consent agenda. Commissioners, please vote. And the vote is unanimous. The motion is carried. Thank you. We will move on to introduction and adoption of resolutions and ordinances. Several there this evening, Commissioners. The first is request for approval of adoption of resolution number 3098-2021, approving a water fund project loan grant agreement in the amount of $7,708,272, including a loan amount of $77,827 and a grant amount in the amount of $6,937,445 for Water Project Fund Loan Grant Number WPF 5416 to finance the design completion, easement acquisition, and construction of a portion of the interim groundwater pipeline phase labeled the Finished Water 1, and other details concerning the loan grant agreement, ratifying actions heretofore taken, repealing all action inconsistent with the resolution, authorizing the taking of other actions in connection with the execution and delivery of the loan grant agreement, and confirming matching funds for the Finished Water 1 project. Commissioners, you're familiar with this process. The Eastern New Mexico Water Utility Authority secures loan grant agreements in order to design and construct the Ute Pipeline project. And most recently, in June of this year, we approved a resolution that was in connection with WPF 5083, which was a loan grant agreement pertaining to the Finished Water 3 phase of the project. So what's before you this evening is the approval of this resolution, which allows the Eastern New Mexico Water Utility Authority to continue on with their work and continue on with the Finished Water 1 project. We're not on the hook for paying the loan, but all of the member communities of the Eastern New Mexico Water Utility Authority do, of course, share share responsibility in this. The Water Authority will pay that back, but we simply pass a resolution effectively guaranteeing our portion of the loan grant agreement. Do you have questions about that I can try and answer and maybe make this more clear? If there aren't any questions, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Madrid and a second from Commissioner Garza. If there's no further debate, what is before you is the approval of adoption of resolution number 3098-2021. Commissioners, please vote. And by a vote of 7 in favor and 1 abstention, the motion is carried. Thank you. Now we will move on to what is now item 2 under introduction and adoption of resolutions and ordinances. And it is request for approval of adoption of ordinance number 2153-21. I wonder if maybe that's 2021. Ordinance number 2153-2021, changing an RS-7 MHO residential single-family -7 mobile home overlay zone to a CG commercial general zone at lots 6 through 11 of Block 23 of the Clovis Place subdivision, Clovis, New Mexico, Curry County, New Mexico. And to advise on this evening, can I ask for the city attorney or perhaps Mr. Chancho to advise on this?
Mayor, if I may just advise on an issue
Okay.
briefly before Mr. Chancho.
Okay,
I was going to ask that that item be removed off consent because it requires a public hearing, and so it can't be on consent. So for this one and the following item, we need to have a motion to open a public hearing, then a public hearing where I'll swear witnesses, a motion to close, and then a vote. The vote will just be a simple majority as there's no protest petition filed.
okay. Very good. Well, thank you for that. Do we have we need a motion to enter into the public hearing, or we're going to hear from Mr. Chancho first?
Mayor, we need a motion to open the public hearing, and then we can start discussion.
Okay. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing, please?
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, motion to open the public hearing from Mayor Pro Tem Bryant. I heard a second from Commissioner Madrid. Commissioners, please vote. Okay, by a vote of 8-0, the motion is carried, and we have entered the public hearing for this item.
Thank you, Mayor. So if you see on packet page 52 of your commission packets, the applicant is Maria R. Martinez, and her address is 912 East Grand. I would ask if Ms. Martinez is present in the audience today. Ma'am, can you go ahead and take the podium?
Good evening, Mrs. Martinez. It's great to see you. Hello. Thanks for being here to share with us about your plans with this item.
And Mayor, if I may swear her in. Maria, can you raise your right hand, and will you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And if you want to tell the commission about the application and the purpose behind it.
Sure. Okay, so we are in the process of opening a used car dealership at that address. And this is, it's a process, so this is one of the steps we have to take in order to be able to start that. We want to get our dealer license, but in order to do that, we need to have that property needs to have it needs to be a commercial property. It's my husband and myself that we're going to be, trying to do that before you, so.
Great, so your plans with the property are a used car dealership?
That's right.
Yep, okay.
And Mayor, if I may, this came before the Planning and Zoning Commission. The application was approved 6-0 unanimously by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The current zone is residential, the proposed zone is commercial general. And voting this evening, just a reminder for this item and the following item. The city commission, let's see. Give me 1 second, Mayor,
Yep.
and I'll look
Yes,
for the
sir.
review
Yes, sir.
criteria. But I can tell the commission again that the packet begins on packet page 52, and it contains the information and a zoning map and also the application from Ms. Martinez.
Very good. Thank you for that, Mr. Morris, and please take your time, and we can review the packet.
And Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, a copy of the Planning and Zoning Commission minutes, the draft minutes were sent to you previously, so you can see the conversation that the Planning and Zoning Commission had. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner
Ms.
Gonzalez.
Martinez, what was in that area? Is it a residential?
That's correct. To the west, there's a church right on the corner. And then to the right, there's like a vacant mobile home. But yeah, to the north and south, there's residential.
Is your area going to be fenced?
It is.
And it's not going to become a wrecking yard, is it?
No, of course not. No.
Mayor, if I may, there was 0 protests filed by the adjoining neighbors and property owners. And the criteria for the city commission is, city commission must consider all relevant factors, including the comprehensive zoning plan and the city's zoning policy.
Okay, thank you for that. Mrs. Martinez, do you plan to pave the lot? You said you're gonna add a fence, and
Right.
and will you have like an office building and that type of thing?
Yes, well,
Yeah.
our plan is to make that mobile home, part of it, you know, the office, the one that overlooks to the actual street, make that the office. Paving, it's in the process. We have not really
Okay, I was just curious.
decided on that yet.
I was just curious, thank you. Any other questions, commissioners?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Oh,
Okay,
we
just-
can't. We're still in.
Close the hearing first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just remind me of the procedure. We're in the public hearing. Now would be the time to ask any questions of Mrs. Martinez?
Correct. Or ask if there's anyone else that wants to make a statement. If there's not, then we'll have a motion to close the public hearing.
Great, thank you for that, Mr. Morris. So I'll do that. Did you have anything to add, Mrs. Morris?
No, thank
Or
you.
Mrs. Martinez, sorry. Is there anyone else that wishes to share with us on this item? Okay, commissioners, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Motion to close the public hearing from Mayor Pro Tem Bryant, second from Commissioner Garza. Commissioners, please vote. By a vote of 8-0, the motion is carried. And the public hearing has been closed. Appreciate the guidance, Mr. Morris, as we navigate the procedure there. So we're back to the item that is before the commission.
I will make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve from Commissioner Casals.
Second.
And a second from Commissioner Madrid. Commissioners, what is before you is the adoption of ordinance number 2153-2021. Please vote. And by a vote of 8-0, the motion is carried. Thank you. So we will move on then to what is now item 3 under ordinances, and it is request for approval of adoption of ordinance number 2154-2021, changing an RS7 MHO residential single-family mobile home overlay to a CG commercial general, lots 1 through 6 of Block 30 and lots 7 through 11 of Block 29 of the Curry subdivision, City of Clovis, Curry County, New Mexico. And
I'm happy to do this one if Mr. Chancho doesn't want to. So this one came before the commission, for the Planning and Zoning Commission the same day, Mayor, November 10th. This one was denied on a vote of 5-2. And so the zone change request, if you have your packet in front of you, on packet page 69, there's the east and west side of Weatherford Street that are zoned residential. And as you can see, it's in the middle of an industrial to the south and commercial general to the east and west. The request is to rezone those two blocks shaded in blue to commercial general. The applicant was not present at the hearing, although he's present today. That's Sammy May. We were told by the individuals that spoke on his behalf that he wanted to open some sort of a mechanic or auto repair business. And then there was also mentioned that the applicant, kind of the impetus behind the application from Mr. May was actually the two individuals that are in the courtroom, one of which, or in the audience, one of which is Mr. Christopher Finch. But they're looking to open a cannabis business in that brown section below East Second Street. And so the zone change would also benefit them in that they would not be 300 feet from a residential zone and would be allowed to open a cannabis business. So it seems to me, and they may correct me if I'm wrong, that they sort of spearheaded the application process, and that may or may not be why Planning and Zoning denied the application, or it could be to do with cannabis. I would like to mention, even though I'm jumping the gun a little bit, when it comes to future agenda items, we will be introducing an ordinance to amend our current cannabis ordinance in 3 different ways at our next commission meeting. And one of those ways, as I explained to the applicants, is to remove that 300-foot from a residential zone requirement. So it may be a non-issue at this point, although I believe they still want to proceed with it. But that is something that will be, I think, on the next commission agenda by way of an ordinance. So with that, I'd stand for any questions.
Yeah, appreciate that, that explanation. I'll check with the commissioners. Do we have any questions before we would
Public hearing.
have a public hearing? Is there a motion to enter the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to enter the public hearing from Commissioner Garza. Second came from Mayor Pro Tem Bryant. Commissioners, please vote. And by a vote of 8-0, the motion is carried, and we have now entered the public hearing pertaining to this item that is before us. Is there anyone that wishes to share with us? Mr. May, perhaps.
And Mayor, may I speak on one issue while he's approaching the podium? Go ahead, Mr. May. Something I wanted to mention, if the ordinance change does not go through, it's important to note that under the Cannabis Regulation Act, once a business is licensed, they're in that spot, grandfathered in there for good. So we could never change the zone back and then ask them to move. However, again, it may be a moot point if we end up changing that requirement.
Thank you for that and for helping us to navigate these confusing waters. I think you need to swear him in.
Sir, can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes. Thank you.
Is it Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. May, thank you. Please share with us about your plans here.
Okay. I've been a member of this community for 48 years. I went to school with Megan Paula, and Chris Bryant is my mom's next-door neighbor. Has been all my life. I moved into an address that I inherited from my aunt at 220 Weatherford Street. They moved the first mobile home in on that block. Mr. Sanchez back there is right across the street from me and has his storage units right across the street. And I have a shop, and I have had a long-time business, a licensed business in this town, and I would like to change that. Yes, those fellas, when they came down and visited with me, this kind of didn't really spearhead my deal. It just kind of got me off my tail and decided, I need to go ahead and probably do something now anyways. This is the right time. I'm getting older and I'm tired of mowing lawns. I'm ready to work on the equipment instead. That's my goal, and that's my plan. It wasn't automotive. It's lawn mowing equipment and stuff like that. And so it's much easier than the physical labor of going and doing, which I've been doing the landscaping and mowing for years. And that is my goal. And now that I have this property to do so with the shop, I would like to do that. And we're surrounded completely by commercial zone all the way and industrial. Now, I'm sorry that if it led to some misunderstanding about the cannabis deal, but I have nothing to do with any cannabis thing. Those guys are down the road for me, and if they happen to benefit from me getting this zone changed, that's just, it's a casualty of whatever, or a benefit of whatever, you know what I mean? It has nothing to do with me. What has to do with me is that I would like to do the same thing as this lady that you guys just approved, except mine is for working on lawnmowers instead of selling cars. And, you know, that's basically it. Like I said, I've been a member of this community for a long time, and I don't ask too much. But I would like to do that if it's not gonna hurt anybody or cause any problems with anybody. I would just like to do that so I can maybe have a customer or two and maybe do some tax business write-off stuff. You know, there's stuff that benefits come from it being commercial instead of residential. But it's probably residential because my aunt and uncle moved that trailer house in there in the early 70s. They were the first ones. So, I mean, it might be my uncle's fault that it's that way because it's the only residential area in the entire zone, I mean, the entire neighborhood. So, I mean, if there was them, I would like to undo that and go this route, please. Or at least consider it, please.
Yeah, appreciate that, Mr. May. Thanks for the explanation. I understand, Mr. Morris, there's been no protests to this
Correct.
change.
0%.
So, I mean, there's obviously been no protest from the other residents, but you mentioned that it is a residential zone. Have you visited with your neighbors?
Yeah,
How do they feel about it?
they all know what, I mean, they all bring their mowers to me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions for Mr. May? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good evening.
You too. You too. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this?
Guys don't mind. We're the guys.
You're the guys?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
if you would,
Yeah, raised it.
yeah.
I'll go you first, Chris. State your name, please.
I'm Casey.
Casey. I thought it was Christopher Finch.
Yeah,
You're,
that's Chris. All right, we look different.
can you state your name for me?
Casey Chavez.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
State your name.
Christopher Finch.
You also swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
So it's Mr. Chavez and Mr. Finch.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Yeah, good. Glad to see you guys here. Please share with us.
Go ahead.
So in doing so, we took the process of doing it the correct way. We went through the proper channels in talking to Les, the city administrator, as well as the city manager, Justin Holwaltz. We actually did a little bit more. We actually went to the block and actually went door to door, talking to residents and also talking to landowners and notifying them and answering any questions as regard to us opening a cannabis business down the road. In doing so, we did get signatures. We did get it notarized, and we also processed it to the city clerk. She told us that you guys might have the paper here. If not, we do have copies if you guys would like to see, just to make sure everyone knew what was going on and there was complete transparency. So.
Okay. Very good. And if you can talk to us about it, the property that you're do you own or do you lease a property on the?
We're doing a lease to own right now. The property owner is actually here with us at
Okay.
this point.
And your property is located where in relation to?
It's 2001 East 2nd Street.
It's going to be south of
South of this
220
one.
Weatherford.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
directly south of Mr. May's
Yes.
property. Okay. All right. Any questions for these gentlemen, commissioners?
Mayor, I have a question.
Yeah,
So,
Commissioner Paula.
correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Finch, but you filed for this zone change on behalf of Mr. May? Is that how it happened?
Yes, ma'am. Initially, in trying to find a variance to get a hearing for our zoning issue, we were told by the administrator of zoning and planning to initially submit the application, and that if anybody had a problem or they had any kind of objection, we'd be notified, and from there, we'd go talk to see if we can come to an agreement. And when we submitted the application, our Attorney Morris actually stopped us and told us what we needed to do. And from that point, we actually wound up talking to Sammy May, and he was on board simply because he also wanted to have the property changed commercially for his repair shop. And from that point forward, that's kind of how we've been trying to get this problem fixed.
Did you, just out of curiosity, did you pay Mr. May any money to file this
No, ma'am.
application on his behalf?
No, ma'am.
Come up front.
Hold on. Good questions, Commissioner Paula. Thank you for that. Any follow-ups to that, and then we can have Mr. May come up and address us again. Any follow-ups? Okay, yeah, Mr. May, if you'd like to come forward and let us know what you had to say.
Am I still sworn in?
You are still
Am I still
sworn.
sworn in?
You still sworn in?
You're
Okay.
still sworn in.
Just to clarify, folks, I asked them to do that. There was a discussion, and I'm not very good, like I said, at all this, the paperwork part of it. I can do it, but I'm kind of lazy, and so, I have to be honest with you. And so we were talking, and I had mentioned, well, I guess I need to probably get me somebody that knows what they're doing to do all this, and they had told me that they were aware of, that they had been in communication with people that knew what was going on, and I asked them if they could help me out, and they said, and so there was no money exchanged. It was just they did it for me because I didn't know exactly what to do or what steps to take. However, it did motivate me to go ahead and follow through with what I want to do, and that's why I'm here tonight. I'm not here for anybody's benefit other than mine and my family. And by the way, Sammy May is my mother. She's at the Doe's meeting tonight. The property is going to be put in my name here before long, but it's right now it's in her name. And I have power of attorney for her, so I can speak in her stead right now. But I've heard myself called Sammy May tonight. I'm Shane. I'm her son, and I'm the one that lives there.
Okay. You said your mom owns the property?
Yeah. Well, the trailer house is still in the people that I inherited it from, in their name, because there's just a procedure to change over, but the property has already been moved, and it's all fixing to be put in my name. Probably within the next 30 days, So I just wanted to clarify that so there wouldn't be any misunderstanding. But it's my property. It's, and if my mom, she was going to come tonight, but she had a Doe's meeting. Otherwise, she would be here to testify to the same, that it is my property.
So your mother effectively has made application for this zone change through Mr. Finch?
Well, if you want to call it that. She was there. I mean, she knows what's up. It's all part of it. I consider mine and my mother as the same entity.
Okay.
Myself and my mother is the same entity. I'm the one that has the business and does all this stuff. The business is my name, and the business license is in my name.
Okay.
And Mayor, if I may interject, he does have power of attorney.
Okay. All right.
Is there any questions now? I'm sorry if I was not clear about that before, folks.
I do have a question. How long you been doing the repair work there?
About 6 years. Oh, the repair part of it? Yes. I just started doing repair work about 2.5 years ago, but I've had the business license for about 6, and I'm transitioning to more repair work than, I've been doing it for almost the whole time, but much more. About 2.5 or 3 years ago, I had some surgery, and I kind of quit working so much out in the field, and it was easier for me to do the work, on the equipment and stuff, rather than go out and mow the lawns. Like I said, I'm 48 years old, and that stuff is for a young man to go out and in them 100-degree days and mow lawns all day long. I'd rather sit in the shop and work on stuff and I don't. It's just much more suitable to where I'm at now in my life than.
Okay, I understand. Next question will be for code enforcement. If he got a license, how come he didn't apply for a zone change then? It's commercial it's still residential. I think it should have been an application for.
I can answer that for you if you'd like.
Please.
Because the license is still at the old address that I lived at, 104 Crescent Drive, which is next door to Mr. Bryant's house. That's where I was at when I was there, and I'm going to get it all, as soon as the property's put in my name, I'll change it over to that address.
Okay.
But that's a residential zone also, right? So
Yeah, and there was never a problem with that, but I didn't have a mechanic shop in there, though, like I want to do with this one.
Okay.
That's the whole reason for this.
Okay.
And it's an industrial zone with a big shop in the back and everything, that's why.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Shane May? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good evening.
Is there anyone else here that would like to testify in this public hearing? Yes. Sir, please come forward. We can have your name and address, and then the attorney will need to swear you in.
Robert Sanchez, 2209 Raintree Boulevard.
Thank you, sir.
Sanchez, can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thanks for being here, Mr. Sanchez.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My first question is, I'm curious as to what, they talked about cannabis on that property. I wonder to what extent is it growing it, is it selling it, is it that's my first question. My second question is, do they own that property where they want to put it on? Do they live in that area? And also, I know correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said there was no opposition to it. But there are several people that live there and that have said they did not want to sell. I have nothing in writing on this, but it makes me wonder if these people have even been contacted.
Okay. So you have a couple of things there. One, the first thing, the question about the intentions of the gentleman that planned to open some sort of cannabis establishment. We'll need to let them answer that question for you.
Okay.
As far as what I said, and the city attorney confirmed that there was no protest. There's a letter that's sent when there's an application for a zone change, and there was no response to that letter. So therefore, we can say that there was no protest. However, when you say there are people that do oppose this, are they on the block that we're talking about, the 200 block of Weatherford?
Yes, I talked to Mrs. Chavez that is right south. I own the, the building, the storage buildings on Weatherford. And I guess she was contacted by these people and told that there was possibly that it would raise property values, that I just heard about this last night. And I just wanted a little bit more information on what to expect if there was a zone change in this area.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Sanchez, I think that's fair, and I think these gentlemen would accommodate and answer that question. We'll, if we can, we'll have Mr. Finch and or Mr. Chavez talk to us about that, if they can.
So our building is zoned industrial, obviously. So what we are going to be doing is we are going to be doing a cannabis production company. We will not be opening to the public. They are not allowed to buy from us. We will just be growing and distributing to dispensaries. There is a difference between a production and a dispensary. Okay, we will not have retail sold out of there. We are a wholesaler for cannabis. That is all. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thanks for providing that answer, and Mr. Sanchez, having gone all the way back to your seat, did that answer all of your questions, or can we? Okay.
And to address his other question, we did speak. Like we said, we do have a petition signed by the residents and some property owners on that blocks, and we did disclose exactly what we were doing to them.
Okay.
So and you're more than welcome. We have, like we said, we have a copy right here. It has the verbiage on there. It has their signatures. It is notarized. So yeah, that's it. Yep, that is it.
Okay, it looks like these are the owners, not just the residents.
They're the owners and the residents. We went and spoke to the residents as well, just in full disclosure.
And it looks like you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties
yes.
that have,
And there's 3 on the.
There's 2. One of them is right next to the gentleman, or to the house he's talking about, which is, I don't know her last name at all, but
Okay.
I think that's what he's talking about. We did talk to her as well.
All right, gentlemen. Commissioners, any questions?
We got one more question.
Oh, yes. So thank you.
Oh,
We'll let
okay.
you,
Oh,
we'll let you step aside, and Mr. Sanchez is coming back. And you're still sworn in, sir.
Thank you. Just one more question. I just wondered why they're asking for a zone change if they do not own the property, and correct me if I'm wrong, if they do own property, I stand corrected on this question.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I field that, Mayor.
Yeah, we're going to let the attorney field that.
Okay.
Thank you. So there is a provision where an individual can ask for a zone change. through a property owner if they get a verification and a signed statement from the property owner that they are the agent of the property owner. And so that's what these gentlemen did. They got the appropriate paperwork saying that they were Mr. May's agent. Then they initiated the application, and then it went in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you so much for your answer.
And Mr. Sanchez, I think possibly you and I are sharing the same thought. The gentlemen that proposed to open a cannabis production operation, the property that they're securing through a lease, they said earlier it's a lease, is zoned industrial. So that particular property is already zoned.
That
in
is
such a way.
already zoned industrial.
Correct, and it's the proximity to these residences in this residential zone that presents a problem for them, and was also an issue apparently for Mr. May and his lawnmower repair shop.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else that has something to share on this while we are still in the public hearing? Yes, we have somebody coming up here. Welcome, sir. If we could have your name and address just for everyone in the room, but then the attorney will need to swear you in.
Okay. My name is Randy Ashley, and I'm the property owner of 2001 East Second.
Okay.
And
Go ahead and raise your right hand. Sir, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. The only thing I wanted to state is the fact that, of course, I owned the building. I knew what the building was being leased for. And as the property owner, I was notified by the city through a certified mail letter. So I know all property owners in that area were mailed certified letters.
Right,
So
right.
I know there can't be a question about whether people knew or not about the zone change.
Okay.
And the only other thing I'd like to say is it seems like it's getting confused about what the issue is, because the issue is the man that's asking for the zone change, which is for a lawnmower repair shop.
Right.
So it's really not.
But to confuse things, we have the very person that plans to put a cannabis establishment in your building acting as the agent for that property owner, and so
Well, I
it
think
it
that's
kind
where
of
it
brought
got
things
confusing
together.
at the
Yeah.
zone change meeting.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah.
that's
Thank
all
you
I
for
really
that,
had to say.
Mr. Ashley.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else that would like to give testimony while we are still in this public hearing? Okay. Commissioners?
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
Motion to close the hearing from Mayor Pro Tem Bryant, second from Commissioner Madrid. Commissioners, please vote on that motion in second. The vote is 8-0, unanimous, motion is carried, and the public hearing has been closed. We are back to the item that is before us, and is this request for approval of adoption of ordinance number 2154-2021, changing this zone. What comments?
Mayor, I'd like to
questions,
make a
debate?
motion to approve the change.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the change from Commissioner Burns.
Can I make a comment, a question?
Yes, you can.
Can Mr. May repair lawnmowers out of his garage without changing the zone?
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Commissioners. Commissioner Paula, I'm not certain. I'd have to look. I know to operate a business, he needs a business license from the city of Clovis, which requires a zone check. So I think the answer is no, but I don't know if there's any exceptions that I'm unaware of right now, so I would have to look.
Does Mr. Chancho know the answer to that question? Please, Mr. Chancho.
Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, yes, the answer, to answer that question, it's yes. He would have to have a commercially zoned property to operate any kind of repair, whether auto or small. If it was a diesel semi-type business, had to be industrial, but that's how it would be tiered.
Thank you for that explanation, Mr. Chancho. It's helpful.
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a second to Commissioner Burns' motion. The motion from Commissioner Burns was for approval. We have a second from Commissioner Casals. Is there any further debate? Hearing and seeing none, Commissioners, what is before you is the approval of adoption of ordinance number 2154-2021. Please vote. by a vote of 6 in favor and 2 against. The motion is carried, and ordinance number 2154-2021 has been approved. Thank you, gentlemen. Next is item 4, request for approval of introduction of an ordinance relating to outdoor dining on city sidewalks in the central business district, amending code section 12.04.140 and creating new code section 12.08.070. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening again, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. So a couple of months ago, Mr. Howalt and I were approached by Ms. Pellegrino-Spear from Main Street about, I believe she was working on receiving grant funding for businesses downtown in the CBD to open some sort of outdoor dining areas on city sidewalks. When looking at the issue, I realized we have an ordinance, a very archaic ordinance, that prohibits the sale of food on streets and sidewalks. Also, if you look in your commission packet, prohibits the sale of ice cream from wagons. So I think it may need to be updated. But in order to allow that to happen, we need to repeal that ordinance and then adopt a new ordinance that allows them, the businesses downtown, restaurants, to use our city sidewalk right away. And so I started looking through other sidewalk dining ordinances and put together sort of kind of a basic ordinance that covered everything. We then met with Main Street and city administration, made a couple of changes, and that's what's before you this evening. We are kind of rushing it. We were still waiting for some feedback from Ms. Pellegrino-Spear and from downtown business owners, but I was informed Monday morning that there may be an issue with grant funding and the timeliness of this ordinance, and we need to hurry up and get it passed so that they can secure the grant funding by the deadline. So I went ahead Monday morning and put it on the agenda. The basics of it are, you can only have dining area in front of your establishment, so you can't go further to the side or out into the street. You have to leave 5 foot of pedestrian clearance on the sidewalk. You need a permit from the city, and with that permit, the city will approve whatever design that you have for the area. Obviously, there's more to it. I'm happy to answer any specific questions, but those are the kind of the highlights.
I appreciate that. Thanks for that explanation. We need to talk about this item, but I'm actually interested in pulling the minutes from that commission meeting when they passed an ordinance that said you can't sell ice cream from wagons. I'd love to hear that discussion. All jokes aside, commissioners, what questions or concerns, comments do you have about this item before you?
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Paula.
Mr. Morris, on, let's see, packet page 75, letter N, it talks about the boundaries of a right-of-way dining area shall be physically delineated with movable fencing. Is that, who's going to decide what that looks like, and does that come later?
So, thank you, Commissioner. So that's a good question. The city, when they approve the permit, will have basically full control to ask for changes or require changes or approve any design. And so that was a common theme that I saw throughout a lot of the sidewalk ordinances. They definitely want some, and especially if you're going to sell alcohol, you have to have a physical barrier, but some sort of barrier designating where that area is. And so,
I know, but what I don't want is I don't want people putting up, I don't know, orange cones and saying this is our barrier. I mean, I think it needs to look nice.
And there is a provision in there about the cleanliness and the aesthetic appeal of the outdoor dining areas, but ultimately the city has unfettered discretion and control and can ask for changes or approve what they see fit, the way it's written now, so.
I think it should be, sorry to interrupt,
No, go
Commissioner,
ahead.
but I think it should be uniform, in height, color.
Well, I kind of think so too. I hate to leave that so vague and then we end up with all sorts of hodgepodge downtown.
Chicken wires.
I agree.
Chicken wire.
So Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners, as Mr. Morris just said, we will have a, plan in place for that. When people come, they'll have to, show what they would like to have at that location and what it would look like, but we can certainly work. This is an introduction this evening, so we can fine tune that for the adoption if it comes to that.
Sounds good.
And as I mentioned, we were trying to rush this before we received a whole lot of comment because of the grant deadline, so.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Did that answer the questions that you had, Commissioner?
Yes.
Great. Any other questions?
I don't have any questions, but I have a comment.
Okay.
You know, we go to other cities and they have this sidewalk dining at other cities, so it kind of opens it up for people to go down Main Street or wherever they're gonna have their establishment. I think it would be a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. I think it would be a nice addition to our downtown and to the great things that we have going on downtown. We want to make sure we do it right. So I appreciated Commissioner Paula's points and Ms. Burrow and Mr. Morris's answers to those questions.
And Mayor, if I may, another, along the lines of Commissioner Paul's question, another issue that we thought there would be some debate or some comments from the commission on is number K, no live entertainment may occur within the right-of-way dining area. We weren't sure the commission's position on that. We included that, but I expected to receive some feedback. I know that some of the businesses do plan on having music playing, not necessarily live music, but some do want live music, so something to think about.
Okay, appreciate that. Again, we're introducing this evening, and it'll be back for approval, so we have the opportunity to fine-tune something like that.
Do we have any idea what the annual fee is gonna be?
No, so I had actually built that into the initial draft, and Mr. Holwalt requested that I take that out, and the reason is because we wouldn't be able to adjust it if it was set in the ordinance without another ordinance. And so, I believe, I'll defer to Ms. Burrows, but I believe the city sets fee schedules annually, and this would just be done with the normal fee schedules that are set annually.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, Commissioner Garza, we'll bring it back. We would have a separate resolution to set the fee initially, and then it'll be reviewed as part of the Revenue Review Committee process.
Very good. Thank you. Any more discussion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve from Mayor Pro Tem Bryant, and I heard a second from Commissioner Burns. Unless there's any further debate?
Another question is this, are these businesses gonna be allowed to have alcohol on the street?
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Commissioners. Yes, they will be allowed to have alcohol so long as they're permitted and licensed by RLD. So it's my understanding that the businesses which already serve alcohol will have to go back to RLD and go through some sort of process to increase their area of sale.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second to approve. Is there any further debate? Hearing and seeing none, Commissioners, what is before you is approval of introduction of an ordinance relating to outdoor dining on city sidewalks in the CBD. Please vote. By a vote of 8-0, the motion is carried. Next, we'll move on, Commissioners, to item 5, which is request for approval of introduction of an ordinance repealing the existing sign code contained in Code Section 12.12 and establishing a new sign code in Section 17.46 of the Unified Development Ordinance. And Mr. Morris, we're really putting you through it tonight. We're back to you, sir.
I'm on my second bottle of water, so So, finally, it's been 3 or 4 years in the making to finalize our Unified Development Ordinance. It was enacted, I think, June 28th of 2019, and then I took over for Mr. Richards shortly after that. The Unified Development Ordinance left open a section for our new sign code. We knew that we were going to need to redo the sign code, but it was such a big undertaking that one, we couldn't do it at the time that we did the UDO, and two, there was a recent change in law by way of a case titled Gilbert v. Arizona that prohibited content restrictions on signs, and just about every sign code in the country was content restrictive. In other words, you can't regulate signs based on the message on the sign. You can't say real estate signs can be X and Y, and political signs can be this, and advertising signs can be this. That's how most of them were built. And so after I took over, we waited about 6 months or so, knowing that we needed this new sign code, hoping that somebody else would take the lead and draft a content-neutral sign code, which no one's ever seen before. Las Cruces had started one, but they didn't really finish up with it, so we went ahead and went for it. And we started out with a model sign code from the International Model Lawyers Association, that just a basic template of what a content-neutral sign code would look like. So you'll see provisions like signs between December 1st and January 30th instead of Christmas signs, or signs before and after election instead of political signs. So they got creative in the way that they articulated the restrictions on different types of signs, but we end up in basically the same place. So we started with that draft, which was very, very restrictive. It came, I think, from maybe Connecticut or somewhere on the East Coast. And we started going through that. We had meetings with planning and zoning, meetings with city administration and building safety, came up with sort of a rough draft, took that to Planning and Zoning Commission, had a study session. They recommended that we engage some of the local business owners and the Clovis Sign Company, and so we did that. Clovis Sign, I think, spearheaded this sign coalition that put together a packet of their proposal and gave us some great information that we hadn't thought of. You know, directional signs weren't in there originally. We hadn't thought about directional signs, you know, that tell you where to park and where to enter and exit. Canopy signs on gas stations, we hadn't provided for those or thought about those. So we, I think, came to basically a compromise on everything that's in the sign code that's before you this evening, except for freestanding signs, the height of freestanding signs, and then I saw on Mr. New's email today, there was some comment about the directional signs needing to be removed. But more or less, that what you see before you this evening is a compromise between that coalition, city administration, planning and zoning. The sign code has not received any public comment, really. I don't remember anyone commenting at planning and zoning. The only commissioner that's really reached out to me so far is Commissioner Paulo, and had some great points that I plan to bring up. So I think we would love to invite public input in this, as this is really the first time that we've asked for it and hopefully can receive it. So we need some of that. Some of the comments from Commissioner Paulo that I think, two things that I would suggest be changed that I noticed. One is she pointed out abandoned signs. It's in our definitional section somehow after review, we failed to move the language in abandoned sign to the proper place under prohibited signs. So I'm going to fix that. She also pointed out that we prohibit streamers, but then in a separate part of the sign code, we allow for grand opening and closing business displays with streamers, balloons, etc. So I think we need to clean up the language that says those are prohibited unless otherwise allowed in the code. And then she did have a point, you know, all the signs, all the freestanding signs, all the billboards, all the attached signs, canopy signs, every sign is essentially grandfathered in under the sign code, meaning you don't have to change it unless you have to substantially repair it or unless you have to move it or relocate it. Substantially repair is defined on page 6 as any repair whereby the cost of restoring the sign to its before condition would equal or exceed 50% of the market value of the sign itself. Commissioner Paula pointed out that our prior sign code has a provision that says if there's a change in ownership of the business, they then have to bring the sign into conformity. So that's something that we could look at adding. And I did receive comments late today from Mr. New about the requirement of not grandfathering in directional signs and how that may be an undue burden on businesses that have those, with some photographs of those. So that may be something to consider. I also received an email from Michael Lansford. I don't know if he's going to be here today, and that was forwarded to the commission expressing his thoughts. But that's basically it. So I know we have a packed agenda and more to do. I'm not going to go through it piece by piece unless you would like, but I am more than happy to answer any questions about what's in there or how we ended up where we are.
Very good. Well, thank you.
And if I may, I'm sorry, I just forgot to mention, you know, in looking at the sign code now in comparison to sort of neighboring communities, Hobbs, Artesia, Alamogordo, Farmington, it's probably a little bit more permissive, but more or less middle of the road. Those aren't content neutral sign codes, but I just mean in terms of the height of signs, the size, how many we allow. I think we're right about in the middle of where everybody else is with this code. So anyway, with that, I would be happy to stand for any questions.
Very good. Well, I think it'd be important to hear from anyone that's here to share with us, or share with you, commissioners. But before we invite them up, comments or questions?
I would like to hear from concerns.
Is there anyone here from the public that would like to address us on this? Mr. Heath Rutherford, please come on up. for the record and everyone's benefit, just give us your name and address.
Sure.
And the floor
Heath
is yours.
Rutherford, 2208 Bel Air Road. So I represent Hamilton Automotive Group. I'm the general manager. And we're noticing the size of the sign that they're wanting to implement at 35 feet. I understand he said it was already standing signs. We're not having to worry about changing or goes over. Am I correct? So I don't know if it's public knowledge yet or not, but I'm gonna be the first person to tell you, we're about to build 2 brand-new facilities, a new Hyundai store west of our Ford store at the old New Holland building. And as soon as that building's completed, we're gonna tear down the current Hyundai store and build the new Toyota store. So that coming into light, that will affect, I believe, coming in on the highway from Amarillo or Texas is gonna be, we need bigger signs. It's a 4-lane highway. It's a 55 speed limit. I think it'll limit our appeal. It's our way to advertise our brand and represent the brand that we put a lot of dollars into, representing the city and the county and the community. So I think going forward with us building these new franchises, if this is implemented, it'll affect the size of our sign of what we can implement. I believe our sign right now at the Ford store, and I'm just using that as an example, I apologize. I believe it's between 55, 60 feet high. And due to that, it is good. It's good visual whenever you have someone coming in on the highway. It isn't intruding anybody. And if anybody has any questions, or I'm sorry, not questions, but I would just like to ask why 35 feet? What is that? Is that a magic number, or where is that coming from that we're coming up with these?
I mean, let's just confirm, I mean,
Yeah.
is on Mabry Drive, on the highway,
So,
what is the height?
Thank you, Mayor. The current code has billboards at 40 feet and then freestanding signs at 35 feet. So I can give you a little bit of some perspective about freestanding signs in other places. Hobbs, the maximum is 35 feet, Rio Rancho, 24 feet, Roswell, 45 feet, Farmington, 26 feet, and then our proposal is 35 feet. So no, it's not a magic number. You know, Mr. Howald and certainly myself are not sign experts. I think we just tried to come up with something that balances that line that you have to keep of the aesthetics of the city versus promoting business and allowing signs. And so, again, 35 foot isn't a magic number. It's just a number that was kind of in between. To me, it makes sense to maybe increase that to 40 feet as we're already allowing billboards on 6084 to be 40 foot. And I know Mr. New is probably going to speak later. You know, his point is that you have all these businesses with 60, 70-foot signs. Well, then you have a new business coming in, and they can only build a 35-foot sign. It puts them at a competitive disadvantage. But again, there's definitely a balance between aesthetics and business. So,
agreed.
That's why you get the big bucks.
Yeah.
And the aesthetic side, and I'm sorry, Mr. Morris, what you mean by aesthetics? I mean, I'm just wanting to ask that question. You're just wanting a uniform as far as across the board for everybody.
Sure, I think that most people don't think signs are attractive. I don't think they beautify the community. I think there's a line of sight issue. And those are the, you know, again, I'm not making policy, I just write it to make sure it's legal, but those are the arguments on both sides. And there's a ton of arguments about business revenue and how beneficial they are as well, so.
And line of sight, that's what I was asking too, lowering the sign, I would believe that would lower our line of sight as far as seeing down. I mean, I'm thinking outside the box here. I'm not a sign expert either. I'm a car salesman, so I don't know that. Right. So, but I do believe that it does attract people, and you build it, you know, it's almost like the Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. And it's the same thing in our business. If something looks nice, which I believe all of the businesses up and down Mabry Drive, not all of them, but I believe, you know, McDonald's, the hotels, I think they really try really hard to attract business because that's our livelihood. And during this time that everybody survived COVID and everything else, I think adding that at cost to a business or hindering them from promoting their business is not the right thing to do for Clovis or Curry County or this, anywhere. So I appreciate y'all listening to me today.
Well, don't go anywhere. Appreciate your comments. There is no intent to limit people's business.
Oh, yeah, no.
There is no intent. So. This commission has heard from the public over and over and over that they'd like the town to look nicer. They want things cleaned up. And part of that is signs. And when we start talking about signs, then business owners immediately think, oh, we're coming after you and your sign. We're not, but there has to be a standard. You know, and that's what we're trying to get to. And so, you know, if it's not 35, if it's 40 or 45, that's fine. We need to get there, but we need the public to understand that we've heard from a lot of the public that they want things cleaned up. So we'd like we'd like for you and everybody else to understand, we want to work with you and the rest of the public in finding what is best for our community. We want our community to look as nice as possible so that your business is as prosperous as possible, and mine and everybody else's, and that we have a community that's inviting and looks like we have our stuff together. There are some parts of our town that it looks like there was no thought, no organization, and there's been no maintenance on falling down signs, falling off the front of buildings and things like that. But we have to have a standard in place with which to start cleaning things up. So I just wanted you to know that we are on your side. We're on your business's side and the others that are here. We have to have a standard. And so we're working towards that. But excited. That's actually pretty cool. You made a public announcement about the expansion of your company. That's awesome.
And that's what we want. We're here. We're local.
Yeah.
We want to be here, and that's the thing, us invest in this. And we know you guys are here to help us. We know most of you guys. We do business with all of you guys. And we want to continue that, and we love that we're here talking about it. But as far as the sign goes and everything, that was just our only question is what was the reasoning for that sign? Because future, looking forward, I have my Ford sign up here, my new Hyundai store way down. It's going to be, we're all about aesthetic, and we want it to look good, but we also want it to be uniform also, so.
And on your example with your Ford sign, which is a nice-looking sign, certainly, if I forget to ask Mr. New, because I think Mr. New is probably going to come up here and talk to us, but I'd like his expert opinion on the height of the Ford sign, because that could kind of, because you said you were guessing, right?
I am total.
Okay, all right.
Total. I am
Okay.
not, again, that is not.
All right, well, we appreciate your input. Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
And Mayor, may I expand on a point that you made? I forgot to mention, it's not just the fact that our sign code now unconstitutional, we have to redo it. Our current sign code doesn't have a whole lot of teeth to it. There's no height limit, which is why you have 70-foot signs and 20-foot signs. And so we're in desperate need of getting something together uniform. And I would also mention that, in a lot of the group meetings and study session, the aesthetic concerns people had weren't necessarily business signs. They were temporary signs in the right-of-way, political signs that are left up forever, flags hanging from trees, that kind of thing.
Right. Right. Understood. Appreciate that. Anyone else here to share with us on this? Yes. Is that Mr. Jarawala? Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Go ahead and just give us your name and address, please.
Yeah, my name is Dhaval Jariwala. My address is 140 Scottsdale Drive, Clovis, New Mexico. Good evening, City Commission and Mayor. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak on behalf of open businesses. I own two businesses on Mabry Drive, 6084 Hotel Best Western, as well as Super 8. I'm here as in, I'm not like Ford that I'm trying to build another hotel and concerned about the signage and all that stuff. What I would like to do, what I would like to ask is, even to the city attorney, as an open business, whatever sign ordinances are adopted, and when you mention about cleaning up, and making everything uniform, how would that affect the businesses that are already open? Are we supposed to modify what our signage is?
Mr. Jarawala, short answer, no. Your signs are grandfathered in.
Oh, so they're grandfathered in.
Right. The only time you would need to bring them up to the would-be new code would be if you had to do a substantial repair. Is that the phrase?
Correct.
Substantial repair. So
What if the ownership is still the same but franchise changes? Because as far as my hotel is concerned, the Super 8 used to be Best Western, or when I bought the property, it was a Red Roof Inn. And when I bought the property, I kept the signage, everything same, just changed the box and face to a new franchise, That was a change of ownership, I understand that, but if I'm the same owner, I change Comfort Inn to a Best Western last year. So how would that affect? The ownership is still the same, but the franchise is changing.
Well, I know that the commissioners appreciate you bringing this point up, because in the explanation on this, the city attorney talked about the fact that, if I understood you right, the way it's currently written, we we don't address an owner change.
A change in ownership would not require you to bring the sign in compliance now. So moving the sign or a substantial repair, which is defined as something that cost at least 50% of what the sign cost initially, if that makes sense. But no, change in ownership, as it's written now, does not require you to bring the sign in compliance.
Oh, it does not.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, those were some of the concerns that I had, being an open business already, you know, that how would it affect, how would this, this ordinance, if adopted, would affect open businesses?
So if, you know, I just encourage you to keep in mind what we've told you, and that is that you'd be grandfathered in for your signs in terms of size and height and all those kinds of things. What might affect you would be anything new in the sign code related to like temporary signs that you might be using for your business and things like that. You would need to conform, you know, if you have a sign that you're putting out temporarily, it would need to conform if there are any rules that apply to it.
Oh, okay.
But we're not giving you a hard time.
And what about, no, it's not about hard time. I just want to make sure, like I said, is, you know, I'm not tearing down a business or building a new one.
Yeah.
So not that would affect anything. Question that I had was on directional signs, what we would be adopting. Would that also be grandfathered in with, the directional signs go with other businesses on, like, you know, as far as they are existing already, and it would still be the same thing, right? The directional signs, the ordinances?
As it's written now, all temporary signs and directional signs would have to come into compliance. So they're not grandfathered in right now, although I know that's a suggested change.
Oh, okay. So I would pretty much, I mean, now we're talking about something that has to be grandfathered in, like, you know, which is there. Because changing a sign for an existing business, being in this business, it costs a lot of money. It just costs a lot of money. So as far as what I understood, what city attorney mentioned is that the directional signs are not grandfathered in. I mean, I'm not talking on behalf of my business, but I see several businesses on Mabry Drive, and I'm not speaking as a business owner, as in myself representing, but I'm talking on behalf of, I mean, I would assume that I would probably bring this to your attention about all the businesses out there. If that directional sign provision is not grandfathered in, it does take substantial money and financial burden on changing that.
Yep, appreciate that.
We would
that
like you
feedback.
to consider that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing
And
it up.
especially, you know, like I said, is businesses have gone through like crazy times in the
Yep,
last couple of years.
They
you
sure
know.
have. Did you have any other concerns or questions?
No, I mean,
Okay.
that's pretty much
Thanks
what
for
I
bringing
wanted.
those to our attention.
All right.
Appreciate you, Mr.
Thank you.
Chirawala. Yeah. Anyone else that wants to share on the sign code? Yes, Mr. Bernard. You've waited patiently since public comment. Yeah. We're glad to hear from you, sir.
Hi again, Mayor and Commissioners. I have a problem with the you guys make me nervous.
Prohibited signs.
Prohibited signs,
A2.
thank you. Number 3, signs which contain blinking, flashing lights. There's only 3 businesses I know in Clovis that have flashing lights. That's the State Theater, Red Arrow, and Taco Box. I don't know why that's even an issue to have flashy lights. So,
Okay.
Mayor, may I?
Yes,
Start an
please,
answer to
Mr.
this?
Morris.
So I also, when Mr. Bernard pointed this out, I think that it probably should be changed. The impetus behind that is the driver safety. It's signs that flash or have movement along the roadway, and I think the wording got too general. And I agree, the way it's written now, it probably prohibits Mr. Bernard signs that are 200 feet from the roadway. And so it was just brought to my attention today, but I would think we would maybe want to look at that and somehow tailor language to, you know, protect the driving public and make sure signs aren't distracting drivers while at the same time allowing reasonable limited signs.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Bernard. Anyone else? Mr. New, would you like to talk to us? Okay. Mr. Brandon New of Clovis Sign. I appreciate you being here.
Mayor Morris and city commissioners, thanks for having us. And my name is Brandon New. My address is 1312 East First here in Clovis. So I think the first thing that I'd like to talk about is the stuff Heath was talking about with Hamilton on their dealerships and pretty much everything that's on 6084. The height out there average is 60 foot. So just keep that in mind. And
Average?
yeah,
is 60 foot?
it
Okay.
is. Yes.
What's the tallest one out there?
Pilot.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
So there's that, and then the let me think here. The directionals, that could be a problem with trying to not have the directionals grandfathered in. And I sent that email out earlier today. I think everybody had time to read that. So do y'all have questions about the stuff on Mabry? Anybody?
Mr. New, I had several calls about the height of the signs. So
Okay.
they want to know why is the 15 is a magic number or 35? Just like Mr. Rutherford, I mean, why limit the height when it's going to limit the way they do business?
Can you explain that a little more to
Well,
me?
it's just, one of the callers says 15 feet high will be a problem for some, but not for others.
Right.
So how are we defined what the height is going to be for every business?
I think right now it's set at 35 foot max height. And those commercial zones, Jared, is that North Prince as well?
Yes, North Prince and the arterials. Those
Okay.
are different, though.
I'm getting a little confused. Right now, it's 35. You're talking about the new ordinance?
The current ordinance, there's no height.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So we all agree there needs to be a number. That's not a question. But the acceptable number on 70 would be, I think 35 foot, 40 foot's fine. And that's what they have in there, is that right?
So they have 30 foot for collector and arterial, 20 for residential. So basically, everything that's not a residential street, that's not US 6084,
Right.
is 30 foot, under this proposal.
Okay. And that's low, but like you said, I think Carlsbad is 30 foot. Is it Carlsbad?
I don't have Carlsbad on here, no.
I think that gives everybody a fair chance on Prince because it's a 35-mile-an-hour zone. There's a lot of stoplights. But on Mabry, I think that we could do better for the businesses out there.
Okay. Okay.
And I think 60 foot is a good number if you guys would consider that.
Okay. All right. So the height on 6084. Any other major concerns you'd bring before us right now?
The other concern was the directionals,
Okay.
removing existing directionals. I can understand cleaning up temporary signage, all the A-frame signage, all the clutter that's around town. But a permanent directional sign, I don't see how anybody benefits from that. There's stuff all over town that's over 5 foot tall that would have to be brought into compliance or be removed. And it's as simple as signs at the hospital or stuff at the Bank of Clovis. I sent all those pictures out today. Bank of Clovis, there's some stuff at Hyundai, there's some stuff at Bender's, that they are directional signs and they're not compliant with the new proposed ordinance. So to put that burden on these businesses to take those down, it doesn't really.
But your suggestion is to grandfather them in that.
Yes, just leave them alone. Unless they're like outside of the property line or a visibility hazard for traffic. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to tell people that they have to remove those, in my opinion.
And Mr. New, I agree with you. I think those should be grandfathered in as well. I know you worked on this committee for quite some time on trying to get this established and come up with a ordinance that would work for everyone, not only for the city, but for all the businesses as well. Are you comfortable with the way this ordinance is written, other than for the directional signs and maybe the height on Mabry?
I believe so. I didn't catch the flashing light, the flashing light part of it. That part's a problem. It's a big problem because everybody that has a digital message board, Rocky's got them, Hamilton has them, Alsop has one. I don't know if that would, written as is, Jared, would that?
You talking about the electronic signs?
Yeah, because that's a flashing light. I think that language is a little. They are? So the flashing light is just like a police light, or?
I think it was, the intent was, there's a public safety issue with signs that direct movement.
Right.
And that are close to the roadway. And so most sign codes that I saw prohibit those. I think we maybe inadvertently prohibited all of them, not just ones that are affecting drivers.
So like an electronic message center that's not part of that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And same with directional, when I chose not to grandfather them in, I was picturing the two, little tin Arby's signs that can easily be picked up and moved.
Right.
And we still allow, I think 2 at 8 square feet for each entrance and exit.
It was, one at each exit, 5 foot tall, no more than 8 square feet, I think, is that right?
But I think there may be a difference, Mayor Pro Tem, between, actually built and established and non-movable directional signs and one that you can just pick up real easy and move, so. If it's in the setback, for example, there's a 2-foot setback or something, so.
I would think the directional signs we're talking about would be the more permanent signs that are located on a property of a business.
That's the word I couldn't find, permanent. Thank you.
All right. Well, sure appreciate the insight.
I think there's one more thing.
Okay.
What Danny was talking about with brand change on hotel franchise. So the hotel signs, they're all different shapes. You have rectangle signs, and then you have the Super 8 it's got its own badge that's more of like a vertical portrait layout, not a landscape, if you will. And I think what would happen is, like, Super 8 has a 60-foot tall sign now. If that ever gets changed for any reason with the franchise, the Comfort Inn sign is not the same shape. So it's a substantial repair. And what that would mean to be in compliance is that thing would have to come down to the maximum allowed height. So that's one of those situations that doesn't come along all the time, but I see that all the time when we're refacing or we're changing brand. If you're gonna put in a new cabinet that's not just like a face change, like a letter change, then you might have somebody that's had an 80-foot tall sign for 20 years, 30 years, and then it's gotta come down to 35 foot, and that's just.
And because I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
No, go
because
ahead.
you work in other cities around the country, you're seeing that happen because of sign code compliance,
We
right?
deal with it all the time. I had variance meetings this week in Lincoln County. We were doing them in Canyon last week. So I'm submersed in this stuff with what's relevant right now.
Gotcha.
And that causes an undue burden on the business owner, just because restrictions naturally get worse and worse. And I just, like I said, I think back out there on Mabry, I think that those businesses out there on the big highway deserve, I think we could do better for them and not put that cost on them if the brand change ever comes about.
Okay. Well, we sure appreciate the input from your perspective in the sign business. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? Nope. Okay.
Wait,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I was thinking and
Yes.
writing at the same time. So the directional signs that are out there now, what is the most common reason they're not in compliance? Are they too tall? Or is it the setback from the street?
It would be all of those things.
All those.
There was a lot of inconsistencies with, there was really no setback in the old ordinance. There was really nothing. So there's a variation of size, height, and setback. So
Okay.
it would be, if you really got down to it, you could go and there's probably 100+ businesses that have something that could potentially be out of compliance on directional. So I think that would be think it'd be worthwhile for the city to not go there, because that would be a huge can of worms.
What would your thoughts be on making the directional signs compliant at a certain date, say 5, 7 years, to give business owners time to do that? Because some of these directional signs could sit out there for the next 75 years and.
Right. I don't know, I'd have to think on that.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. New? Appreciate your time, sir.
Okay, yeah,
Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Mr. Strebeck, please, sir.
Sid Strebeck, 224 Sands and Clovis, and Mayor, Commissioners, staff. I just don't ever like to go to a meeting and not speak, you know, when you get that opportunity.
We noticed that, sir.
I just want to compliment the city, having been involved with Brandon from the time this ordinance was first being discussed. And that is, I think everybody agrees we need an ordinance.
Yep.
I don't want to brag too much on him, but Brandon New is involved all over this region and sees different things and sees pitfalls. And actually, a really strict ordinance would be to his advantage, because we'd have to all change our signs, and it'd be great for business. But he's a great resource, and I just appreciate the fact that y'all have been open to that. And as we work on the ordinance, that we, just like on the directional signs, kind of get some input from him on what works, and businesses want to be, we all want this to be a beautiful community and applaud what we're doing in things, not just signs, but in terms of just the way things look. So anyway, I just want to thank everybody for the input. And so.
Well, thank you for those comments. Appreciate that, Mr. Strebeck. Mr. Porter, were you asking for the floor? Welcome, sir.
Thank you. My name is Gene Porter, 1305 Stratford Lane. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, I know it's been a long evening, and I want to just run through a couple of things real quick. And Mr. Jared Morris, I probably will direct some of this towards you. Obvious concerns were the height of the deal proposed from Mr. New was around 60 feet for the height of the signs. Is that correct?
On the highway, I think.
On 6084.
On 6084, yeah.
That was the proposal.
In the current proposal, it's 35,
35.
and he had suggested 60, I think.
Mr. New
Yep.
said 60. Would it be considered, Mr. Morris, that maybe you just make it not greater than the largest or tallest existing sign there?
Certainly, I think anything's an option.
Okay.
I don't know if you were here earlier when I mentioned the height requirements from other cities for some perspective.
Yes.
And then, something that Mr. Holwald, I know he's not here today, but that he had mentioned after receiving Mr. New's email is, it makes sense to at least increase the height to 40 feet to be consistent with the billboards. But keep in mind that if we're only going to allow billboards to be 40 feet, why would we allow freestanding signs to be 50 or 60? So, but it could be tailored in any way. This is the first time it's been introduced, and it can be changed, amended, and modified in any way, so long as it's not content restrictive.
Thank you. And the next one is, you'd mentioned that the existing signs are grandfathered, but as I was running through the existing code, I did not see where that was stated that it was grandfathered. Is that in there?
So it's not in the existing code, it's in the proposed ordinance, and it's on 17-45130 on page 17. It reads, signs which were non-conforming to the prior ordinance which do not conform to this code shall be removed immediately. All temporary signs and directional signs, regardless of their prior compliance, shall be brought into compliance or immediately removed. So again, it only requires that those types of signs, as of now, and it looks likely we'll remove directional from that requirement.
Thank you. And we had a discussion about the LED additions to the signage, and forgive me, Mr. New was spot on. He knows his business. I don't know what they're called.
Electronic signs?
Yes. Is there a note to alter that and clarify whether those are going to be in compliance or not?
Well, not necessarily a note, I mean, just the comments received this evening.
Okay.
And so, and I would clarify, so it's signs which contain blinking, flashing, or fluttering lights or other devices which exhibit movement. It does not include digital billboards. A digital billboard is a sign that is static and changes messages by any electronic process or remote control. So something that has a written message or, chains, advertising companies, something like that.
So would that definition include the signs, like, for example, the Ford store that does not include that?
My reading of it is it won't include it unless you have a billboard that has some sort of moving light going around, some sort of constant motion.
Okay. All right. Guys, I just needed clarification. That's all I had.
Thanks for that, Mr. Porter. Thank you. Appreciate it. Mr. Morris, we have really grilled you this evening. Thank you for all the work that you put in on all of these things, certainly the sign code. Let me ask you this. We're gathering a lot of public input. How would you feel about the commission approving this for introduction and being able to finish it up? Would you feel like we'd have the time to do that, or would you feel better if we postponed till, say, the next meeting or the next?
We don't have to take it to another commission. It has to be no sooner than 30 days, right? But we don't have to bring it in 30 days, right? Okay. So I'm thinking that if we introduce it today, then we have to bring it back for final approval within 30 days.
1 month from now.
Which we may not want to do. So I think if, given the amount of feedback and the time it may take to rework this in, I think a motion to table this may be appropriate.
And would the next meeting be enough time, or should we postpone it for a month?
I think that would be enough time if I.
Okay. Commissioners, I would entertain a motion to postpone this item until December 2nd.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Second.
Motion to postpone from Commissioner Garza, second from Commissioner Burns. Commissioners, please vote. By a vote of 8-0, the motion is carried and that item has been postponed.
Mayor, I'm sorry, I have a quick question for Mr. Morris. Under temporary signs shall not be placed on utility poles, street lights, similar object or private property. Does that pertain to garage sale signs?
Mayor Pro Tem, can you tell me which page number and section you're on?
You're on packet page 103. Under number 6, or no, number 7, excuse me. No, number 6.
That is correct.
Okay. The item has been postponed. We'll take it up again at our December 2nd meeting. Commissioners, we'll move on to item 6, which is request for approval of adoption of resolution number 3099-2021, adopting a districting plan for the city of Clovis. And to advise on that, Ms. Melanson.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Commissioners. Let's go a different direction now. So, in October, Michael Sharp presented the information on the beginnings of the City of Clovis redistricting after the decennial census. He presented the information, gave you some maps to consider, and then on November 4th, during the study session, we again looked at the maps in greater detail. We had Ms. Poss with us for that one, and we were seeking public input for the 5 plans that had been presented. After that meeting, we put all of the maps on the city Facebook page with some information. It was on our Facebook page from November 8th to the 15th. We did receive 19 responses, with the majority of the citizens either selecting Plan A or Plan F. The others had lower. Plan C actually had no responses received on that, with varying comments for those. We also had the maps in the hallway in City Hall, plus maps in the library for public to look at. And as presented in the initial review, the populations in District 1 and District 4 had increased. District 2 and District 3 had decreased, so it was necessary to make these changes to get them into closer compliance in the amount of population for each of those. The suggested, based on the census, was 9,641 in each of the districts with a plus or minus 5% variance. So of course that required District 1 and District 4 to decrease, District 2 and District 3 to increase. And then as they were pointed out during the presentation by Research and Polling, they must be substantially equal, and any single district cannot be looked at in a vacuum. We have to look at all of the districts together, how they factor in, being similar in nature, and always knowing that changing one district obviously will impact the others. So the resolution in front of you is now, we're time for a final decision on the map that the commissioners would like to move forward with for our election cycle for the next 10 years. This will be in place for the March 1st, 2022 election. The resolution does state Plan A. That was just as guidance and research from the one that Mr. Richards had done 10 years ago with a starting point. The precincts that are impacted are listed on this. And of course, depending on the commission's decision and vote tonight, the changes can be made at that point in time. And Brittany is with us from, and I believe Michael is as well, from Research and Polling. So if you ask generic questions, I'll be happy to answer them. If you start asking technical questions, I'm going to refer them to Research and Polling for assistance.
Fair enough. Well, thank you for that explanation, Ms. Melanson. And, you know, I can't help but think about how important it is that we answer the census, right? Because based upon the census, our city is now being redistricted. So, you know, for maybe part of our town or more than one part of our town that underreported, it works to, you know, your disservice. So it's just important that we answer the census. But understanding that the purpose of this is dividing our city up equally into 4 districts so that everyone is equally represented. This is a great process to be a part of. Excited to see this move forward. I will begin the discussion by saying I don't like Plan F, and I could flip through and find the others that may or may not include the change in increasing the size, the land area effectively of District 1. I don't like that idea, and a main reason is when you move that area out north of town where Gaddis Middle School is, when you move that out of District 4 and into District 1, you're ensuring that if development does take place out there, that it's going to add to the population of District 1, which we already see development taking place on the east side of town in District 1, and so I just don't want to see us landlock District 4. So I would argue against Plan F, and in that vein, Plan A is by far the cleanest, and in my opinion does the best job. Those are my thoughts. I don't want to increase the land area of District 1 and effectively landlock District 4. I appreciate the simplicity of Plan A. What are your thoughts, commissioners?
Mayor, go ahead.
Since we're talking about District 1, which is our district, Commissioner Burns and myself, I agree with you on that. I think it's the cleanest and confusion is gonna be there regardless of what we do today. People are gonna be confused as to where do I live and what's my district and who is my representative. So that's gonna be a problem anyways, but I like Plan A.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Paula had asked for the floor. Just a moment, Commissioner Madrid. Commissioner Paula?
No, I was going to, I won't belabor the point, but I also like Plan A. I think it's clean and simple and leads to the least amount of confusion.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Madrid?
I don't like Plan A. I would rather go with Plan B, because right now it's pretty simple for District 1, but it's not simple for my district. When you take my deal, it goes across 21st, all Merle and all that. It'd be more cleaner on Plan B for me, where it comes out in a regular square instead of going up, taking off District 4. So I don't think that it's I don't think it's a good plan.
I hear what you're saying, Commissioner, but.
But you know what?
it is
And
kinda-
another thing it does, it reduces the current plan has 66% Hispanic on it. And this plan goes down to 64. And I don't like changes on percentages. When it was 66%, and then we just cut it down to 64 because you think that this looks cleaner. Well, it doesn't look cleaner to me. I don't think it's a good plan for District A.
Well,
You know,
I
and
respectfully
it,
disagree
you
because
you shouldn't have any say-so because you're part of the whole city. You're at large, so you don't have to say-so on these unless it's a tie-break.
I'm elected at large.
Yeah,
And I represent the public, and so I would argue that Plan B is actually pretty confusing down in the part of town where my office is. In the downtown area, you're moving the line, and you've got to figure out, well, I was in one district, but now I'm in another, just the other side of Main Street here. And so
What about 21st? That's going to confuse them too.
It's a pretty simple line that's drawn there in Plan A, but any other discussion?
Yeah, Mayor.
Yep.
I'm in District 2, and I looked at all of them, and I feel like that Plan A is the best for everybody. It sure seems to me like distributes things well. So Plan A
And- Appreciate those comments, and I guess Ms. Melanson did reference the poll, so to the extent that we took public input, the public selected either A or F, I believe. I've misplaced my
Correct.
pie chart, but, so the public
doesn't
definitely
say
liked
much.
A.
The
Mayor,
public doesn't say much.
I'm not too excited about Plan A either, but at the same time, I don't think anything we choose is gonna add to some confusion for our citizens regardless. So, I mean, it doesn't make any difference what we choose. It's gonna, residents are gonna have a hard time figuring out where they're at and what district they're in, so that's not gonna change things.
And while that's true to an extent, when the public is made aware of the map, the interactive map on the city's website that actually is really slick at helping you find your district and your commissioner, perhaps it'd be an opportunity to promote that tool in helping the public understand the changes. But I hear what you're saying. Any change is going to create confusion for those folks that wind up on the other side of a line, certainly. Other comments, debate?
You can vote just about anywhere, so I don't think it matters, and your name will be on whatever district you're at.
That's an excellent point. Just, you might be confused about which candidate, maybe, right? I mean, if there's a.
You see the names on the ballot, and then you know, oh, I gotta vote for them.
Yeah, okay. I like the simple way of looking at it. Good point. Good point. Any other discussion?
Mr.
Yes. Who do we have there?
Mr. Mayor, this is Ben Salazar.
Hello, Mr. Salazar. Go ahead, you have the
Good
floor.
evening. Good evening. Well, do I need to be sworn in since I'm on the phone? Because I promise to tell the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
That's good enough for us in this case. Go ahead, Mr. Salazar.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Commissioners, and the staff for the opportunity to speak this evening. We have a kind of an ad hoc committee that's been looking at the redistricting process over the past week. And there are a couple of points that I'd like to make. First of all, I'd like to make a point of the fact that I know, and I agree with Commissioner Bryant, that any decision is made, this was brought up during the county commission in terms of their redistricting process, that any decision is made is that there are going to be people affected by it, and change is always difficult. But we sometimes have to understand the fact that the part of the processes are that change is coming based on demographics, on populations moving, and adhering to federal election laws and Voting Rights Act. With that being said, I would like to go on the record as being in favor of Plan B, which basically at this point I think really reinforces the fact that the population numbers reflected in District 3, not only in terms of potential voters, but also in terms of demographics and ethnic makeup. Credit to Claire Burrows and the Census Committee that was very diversified in terms of ethnic backgrounds and community involvement and just a knowledge of experience in terms of their different fields. Made a concentrated effort to reach those areas that were probably disenfranchised or had not been effectively reached in the past, which I think is reflective of the population that is on Plan B. The other thing about Plan B is that District 3 is a very close-knit community. And so, we are all familiar with our neighbors. We know what our needs and concerns are. My concern on Plan B is that the extension over into the area that Commissioner Fidel was mentioning is somewhat would be new, and I'm not so sure that those areas there have the same issues that we have in the majority of District 3. And so based on that, I just want to go on the record saying that I would favor Plan B, as most of the folks that I've talked to in District 3 have as well. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I know it's a tough decision, but again, I think our overall objective here in the redistricting process is to look out for the majority of the constituency, to make sure that we engage those folks in being able to exercise their right to vote, and then adhere to the policies and the procedures in terms of what we required in the census for 2020. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Salazar. Have a good evening. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say, but maybe stand for questions. Commissioners, do you have any questions or comments for Mr. Salazar? You did a good job. There's no comments or questions. Thank you, Mr. Salazar.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve Plan A.
Okay, we have a motion to approve Plan A in adopting resolution number 3099-2021. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Paula. The motion came from Commissioner Rowley, second came from Commissioner Paula. What is before you is approval of adoption of resolution number 3099-2021, adopting a districting plan for the city of Clovis, and that being Plan A. Commissioners, please vote. By a vote of 6 in favor and 2 opposed, the motion is carried and Plan A is adopted.
Thank you, Mayor, and I will work with the county clerk on getting the individuals into the proper precincts so that we will be ready for our March election.
Thank you, Ms. Melanson, for your effort on that, and thanks to the folks at Research and Polling as well. Commissioners, we have nothing to deal with under unfinished business this evening, so we'll move on to new business where we have 3 items. Everybody take a drink of water and a breath, and we're gonna keep going. Item 1 under new business is request for approval of hearing regarding a noise variance request at 105 Merrill Street from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Tuesdays and Wednesdays, or Tuesdays and Thursdays. And to advise, Ms. Burrows?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. Mr. Paul Ramirez, who lives at 105 Merrill Street, has a four-piece band that meets twice a week, either on Tuesdays and Wednesdays or Tuesdays and Thursdays for a couple of hours between 6 and 8 p.m. The house is located in a residential area, and I put a copy of the residential area showing where it is in front of you this evening. I think it's also in your packet. Mr. Ramirez is asking for a hearing regarding a waiver for the noise variance for these times, and in your packet also are some signatures of those who were not opposed to the band playing there for practice. A notification regarding the hearing was placed in the Eastern New Mexico News on November the 10th, and last week notifications were mailed to residents within 300 feet of the property. As of Monday, November the 15th, one response has been received to the public notification, and I had emailed that out to you. And then in your packet is chapter 9.40 regarding the noise control definitions and disturbances regarding sound amplifying equipment, and then 9.40.030 regarding residential area noise disturbance, and then also the section 1.12.040 regarding the granting of a variance information. So with that, I will pass it over. I guess we need a hearing. Thank you.
Yep. Appreciate the explanation on that, Ms. Burrows, and I presume that several of the folks that have lasted this long in the meeting are here to talk to us on this one. So, Commissioners, can we have a motion to enter the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion to enter into the hearing from Mayor Pro Tem Bryant, second from Commissioner Garza. Commissioners, please vote. And by a vote of 8-0 in favor, the motion is carried, and we have now entered the public hearing. Anyone here to share with us on this will need to come and identify themselves and then, of course, take the oath. Good evening.
I'm Robert Gamble. This is my wife Beverly Gamble. We live at 104 Merrill Drive, directly across the street from 105. We have made our home there for over the last 45 years.
Okay,
Excuse me for my voice.
Just a moment. We're going to need to swear you in because we're doing a public
Okay.
hearing. Mr. and Mrs. Gamble, it's great to have you here. The city attorney will swear you in.
Thank you. Do you both swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do. I do.
Thank you. Please continue. You have the floor to provide your testimony.
Okay, we have, again, lived in that residence for over 45 years. It's been a quiet residence. It's a residential residence. The Romeros, Mr. Ramirez, bought the property across the street from us. Told us shortly after they moved in that he had a band. He had lost the building they were practicing in, was going to have to practice, excuse me, in his garage for 2 or 3 times till he found him a place to practice. Well, that's gone on for months. Got tired of it, asked him if he had made any opportunities to find a place. He made excuses, said no. He had other problems that wasn't going to work out, so he continued to play. I talked to Chief of Police, Chief Ford, asked him about my options. So after that, I started calling police when he got too loud. He played Tuesday and Thursday night from 6 o'clock till 9 o'clock or after. It was a good band, I'm sure, professional band, amplifier, speakers, microphone, everything. Come completely across the street. We can't close the house up. We can't turn the TV up enough. And I've told Paul, he's blasting us out of our home. This is not right, folks, in a residential area. But again, it made him no difference. He just kept going until finally he was issued a citation. And then here we are.
I would like to point out, excuse me.
Go ahead.
I would like to point out that Officer Riddle was the first one to come by and actually walk off the distance the way they were playing, and she had to go back 2 or 3 times and tell them it was still too loud. And we had everything closed up. She came in and closed the door, and she said, "You're right, it's way too loud." And then, after that, after Officer Riddle had come by, then he upgraded all his, speaker equipment, and now then it's really loud. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's just like having a megaphone come into your living room. And I don't know what the answer is. I just know that I've got high blood pressure, and by the time they're done, I don't, it's bad. That's all I can say.
Mr. Gamble, excuse me, how many times was the police department called regarding this?
I understand the number was 6. I was not aware of it. We did not call every time they played. We hated to do that. Felt like we were being a nuisance ourselves. So we just put up with it some. But again, it became a point where we had no other choice. We had to do something to make an attempt to stop this invasion into our home.
Okay, one more question. How long has this been going on?
Almost all year.
About a year. And like he said, they originally said that they were going to have someplace else to play. And surely there is some, either the college or some civic organization or somewhere that they could go and practice and not disturb the peace in the neighborhood. And I know that we're the ones that get the brunt of it. We are directly across the street. And I'm sure that it doesn't bother some of the other neighbors. They're not right there with it coming into the, right in.
Yeah, our houses are lined up directly across from each other. There's an alley on the north side of our house. Our garages, you could back out of one driveway into the other. And it's just, you know, I just don't feel like that this should be allowed to continue. So.
Yeah, we're asking if you would deny the variance that they're requesting.
Well, thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it. If
And
you
I
don't-
thank you all, Mayor, Pro Tem, and Commissioners, for your time. I know it's been a long night.
It has, and I'm sorry that that you've had that all of you have had to wait this long, but we had a big meeting tonight. But if you have something else to add, please do so now. Otherwise, we appreciate your testimony and what you've had to say.
I believe that's all I've got to say.
I think so.
Mr. and
And
Mrs. Gamble, thank
for
you.
your
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I recognize my friend, Mr. Fox. How are you, sir?
My name's Ken Fox. I live at 609 Starlight Drive.
Sir, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do. The alley behind my house is a T alley. So the back of my house is faced towards the north end of their house. The garage that they practice in is in the south end of their house. I can't sit outside in the evening when they practice. And if I go inside, I have double pane windows and I can still hear it. It's very distracting. I don't know why anyone would want to persist the way he does. The noise probably wouldn't be near as loud if they would just have the decency to close the garage door. But half the time they don't do that.
One of the police officers asked them to close the door and continue playing, and they said closing the door did no benefit whatsoever. That is stupid. That is off the property.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Fox.
Does anybody have questions?
Yep.
Thank you.
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Fox. Anyone else here to testify on this topic? Evening, sir. If we could have your name, please.
Yes. Hi, my name is Paul Ramirez. I live at 105 Merrill Drive.
Mr. Ramirez.
And I am the owner of this band.
Great.
Okay.
Mr. Ramirez, thank you for being here. We look forward to hearing from you. The city attorney needs to swear you in.
Do you swear or affirm that Start again. Do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Ramirez, please share with us whatever you would like.
This band serves as a professional group. We don't jump up and down and play loud music like, rock bands. We play country and Spanish, and this band has done quite a bit for this community. The only reason all I'm doing here is asking for a tiny, tiny bit of headway so I can keep practicing. The speakers that he's talking about that we practice off of are two little monitors set on the floor. They're maybe a foot high, and they face the inside of the garage so it don't go out. Now, the Spanish music we play is played with trumpets, saxophones, which is a little bit louder than country and western. We are also a country and western group. But I have a certificate here, sir, from the Head Start Department, where this group has furnished and donated money to them by doing benefit dances, given the proceedings. We're just asking for a little headway so we can get going. Now, Mr. Robert here, they complain, I'm even suspected about going outside and using the leaf blower because he says his wife don't like it because she's got allergies. So when I'm doing the lawn with my lawnmower, there I am just trying to hurry to get out from the front to the back. And as far as Mr. Fox, when I first moved there, he says, I love musical goes. When you guys are practicing, invite me. This is the first time he's ever said anything. And yes, we've been playing there close to a year and practicing. But only a few months ago did he start complaining. You know what I'm saying? All this time, he could have, the first time, come across and asked us to lower. Instead, he came across, went into my yard, and he cussed every one of us out. I mean, to the top of his lungs. He was shaking so bad that I felt bad, and I told the guys to just leave it alone. I said, he's my friend. I said, and I don't want him having a heart attack, because he was shaking. I really felt bad. The next morning, I went to his house there, and I apologized to him for what happened. And I told him I'm going to go buy a UV meter, where that I can read how loud I am across the street. I said, well, he goes, I don't care what you do. So I was going to try to compromise some way with him, but he just wouldn't go for it. He just wants me to shut it off, and then that's all there is to it. Peggy, there's a lady right next door to me, Peggy and Carl. I'm facing you like this, and they're right next door. She comes out and sits in her front porch, and when it can't hear it enough, she'll come out all the way to our driveway and sit out there, her and her husband, and she opens her windows that are on the side of my house so she can hear. Then further down from her is another. Nobody's complaining. This is the only complaint that I get is from Mr. Robert right here. And I'm not trying to be a nuisance. All I'm asking for is a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit, and I'd leave it at your discretion what headroom you got, because the ordinance says that's 25 feet. If you can hear more than 25 feet, it's too loud. If I stand in the back of that wall back there, sir, it's like 30 feet, and I could talk normal, and I'll guarantee you'll be able to hear me loud and clear. Now, there's no idea. I studied sound engineering for a long time, so I know that there's no barrier that you can put that's going to make the sound go and stop right at 25 feet. So, I mean,
Let me ask you this, Mr. Ramirez. You
Yes, sir.
said you're a professional band, and I'm sure you're great. I would even love to hear you sometime. But as a professional band, why are you practicing at your house?
we have nowhere else to go, sir. We were renting the DMV building in Portales, but they sold it out from under us. So then we have a friend here, this chiropractor, that loaned us an office building in Portales, and we practiced there for a good while, but now that building is also sold. So we had to come back. Now, because of the equipment that I have, sir, I have to comply with security and all that before the insurance company will allow us to insure the equipment. We have enough equipment to play in the event center. And we're only using two little bitty monitors, like I say. Yes, we use microphones, and I can understand the Spanish music, part of it, getting a little bit louder than the country because it's trumpets and saxophones.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And you can recognize that, that happening in a residential area.
Yes, sir.
That's why we have the noise ordinances, because,
Yeah.
the expectation is that you'd have reasonable quiet
Yeah.
in your neighborhoods. And you said you've been doing this for about a year, or
No,
going on a year.
In that area, yeah. This band been together for more than 35
Right.
years.
What is your plan? You said you're asking us for a little bit of
Just
headway.
a little bit of
what is
headroom for the noise. We winter's here, so the garage door is going to be mainly closed. And,
So you have, and sorry to interrupt you, but you have no plans to move your practice somewhere else?
well, we don't have anywhere to go, sir. If that equipment, just one of my keyboarders costs more than $4,000, if they break into any building we rent and they were to take something, the insurance won't go with us because there's not enough people staying there. To be able to put insurance on your equipment, you have to have all kinds of security. At my home, I have all that.
Okay.
So we're just asking for a little leadway. I have a certificate here, sir. Would you like to see it? From the Head Start, showing where this group has complied to them. And we do participate in helping the community. We did that just now when you had your events at the carnival and stuff. The
Well, I
events-
think I don't think that your good citizenship as a professional band, at least out in the community, playing and raising money for organizations, none of that is in question, nor is it really relevant to you making a considerable amount of noise in a residential area,
Yeah.
and you have neighbors that are having a hard time with that, and
One-
understandably. So
One neighbor.
Yeah. Commissioners, do you have questions for Mr. Ramirez?
I do,
Yep.
Mayor.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
You know, normally a noise variance is approved for a temporary period, for like a weekend or 1 or 2 days during a birthday party or a block party, something like that. A variance is not normally approved for something that, for an extended period of time,
Yeah.
you know, such as what you're doing. There's a lot of vacant buildings in Clovis. I have a hard time believing that you can't find something that would be appropriate to what you're wanting to do.
Safetyness, yes, and keep, you know how people go after equipment really hard all the time. It's always getting stolen.
But
And like
from what I see, if we approve this ordinance, then, we might as well not have an ordinance.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna be we're gonna be approving variances.
Yeah. What I was asking for, sir, is we're not asking just because you granted this to us. I mean, we're gonna blast it or be as loud as we can.
Yeah.
We'll come down and keep it as low as we can. We just need 1 or 2 hours a night would be fine. And one time out of the week, I would leave it at your discretion. Just so that this band also helps maintain 9 families. It keeps them above water. And if we can't practice, we can't do bookings, we can't get hired. But it does help nine families make ends meet. That's all I'm asking for, a tiny bit. I'm not asking you to change the 25-foot thing. We would do whatever we needed to keep it down so that it wouldn't disturb them. I met Robert about a year ago, and believe me, I miss his friendship. I hate that this happened. He's very wise. Me and him got along. I get out in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, drink coffee. He comes out of his yard. We sit there and I'd ask him questions. He's very knowledgeable. And I told his wife, I said, you tell Robert, I miss his friendship, and I do.
Yeah.
It's not,
Well,
I'm not trying
it's a
to
tragedy
be a
that,
nuisance.
I think it's a tragedy that neighbors can't work it out,
Yes.
right? But, you said you're asking for a little bit of leeway and you'll keep it down.
As low as I need to.
Could you keep it down to the point that it's not disturbing the neighbors?
Yes. Yes, so
Well, then
I was
you don't
talking
need
to
a
the guys about
variance.
insulating the
Well,
garage.
Mr. Ramirez, if you could keep it down to the point that it's not disturbing the neighbors, you don't need a variance.
Okay.
That's what neighbors do.
Yeah.
They take
Compromise a little.
into consideration the neighborhood that they live in, and they don't do things that disrupt the peace in the neighborhood.
Yes,
And so, if you're saying you could take it down to where it's not disturbing anyone, then you don't need a variance.
I think if we insulate it, and winter's here, the door's gonna be shut 90% of the time, and a lot of times we don't practice at all, especially if it's icy. Most of the guys work in Portales, so they have to drive back up here, and if it's icy, I cancel practices, but, the officers that did come and talk to us, their comment, and this is every one of them, just by, he goes, I'm sorry, Paul, he goes, I hate to tell you, he goes, I don't see you being loud. He goes, you guys are really good. I don't hear it. How's it disturbing? He goes, but it's across the street. It gets into them, and they don't like it. So he goes, the law is the law. But he goes, you're not law.
The law is the law.
we try to comply
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah. Any other questions for Mr. Ramirez? Yep.
Mr. Ramirez, did you get this petition signed for all the neighbors?
Yes, sir. I'm the one that had that. Is that the one that's saying where my name's on the top of it?
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Pablo Ramirez, 105 Merle,
Yeah,
Clovis,
we
Mexico.
typed that on, using
And then it says,
Office Max.
I, the undersigned, can state the music coming out of his garage at 105 Merle Drive, Clovis, New Mexico, is not loud and distracting at all. Then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 people here. And you talked to each one of them that they,
Yes, sir. We went door by door and they signed it. And like I say, the lady that's right next to me, she opens her windows. And then further down from hers, one more, and he asked me if I can kick it up. We used to practice on Fridays, but I don't ask for Friday no more because the lady next door to him at 108, she does prayer meetings on Friday. So I tell the guys we have been disrespectful. I said, let's quit practices on Fridays so I can have prayer meetings. And we did. So then we changed to weekday, Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, whichever. And then now we got a problem.
okay, thank you.
That all?
I think Randy had a comment.
He said he had only heard from me, but right now, and I haven't complained before. If anybody would like to know why I haven't complained before, I could explain it to them.
Come on
He
up to
said
the
he
microphone.
Come on up to the mic, Mr. Fox, if you would.
He said he was gonna soundproof his garage when he moved in there, so being neighborly, I kept my mouth shut and went in the house during the summer. And then that never materialized. Then he said he was gonna rent a place. Well, that's never materialized either. And I figure I've been a good neighbor and kept my mouth shut long enough. It's time to step up and say enough is enough.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fox.
Any questions?
No, sir. Appreciate your testimony. Sir, you wanted to, oh, hold on, Mr. Gamble. This gentleman, please.
Do I gotta swear in?
Yes, if you'd just give us your name and address, and then we'll have you swear in.
Randy Lopez, 113 Merrill Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Mr. Lopez, do you swear or affirm that your testimony will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lopez, please share with us whatever you'd like.
I'm Paul's neighbor. There's a house between his garage and my garage. Okay. His noise level, I hear the baseball feels louder than him. Paul is not loud. He's comfortable. This whole thing has to do, and I hate to say it, but this is where all this is coming from. When Paul first moved in, he used to talk with me all the time. They were neighbors. They'd talk back and forth. And I went up there one day while Paul was putting in a brand new hitch on his truck, an electric hitch. Paul didn't charge him nothing. He's doing it at the kindness of his heart. Okay? She comes out, her son's standing right next to him. And they start talking about the music, the loudness, and so on and so forth. Her comment was, I don't mind the country music. I just don't like that other shit you play. Okay, that's wrong. That's dead wrong. She has complained about my son smoking out of my front. I'm smoking meat in the front of my garage because of the smell. She's complained to the neighbors about the prayer meetings that the religious music is too loud. She can't sit here and tell me she can hear Paul in her living room. Okay, we got a guy that's doing something for the community here. We have a guy that helps out families that are moving on. The 2 hours that he's asking for to practice from 6 to 8, who's it gonna kill? Who's it gonna hurt? Nobody but them. You've said it 3 times. Neighbors. It's not neighbors, neighbor. Him and her. And that's it. I can't believe he's up here complaining about Paul's music, and he don't say a damn thing about the baseball fields, and they're louder than Paul. And they're almost, what, quarter of a mile from us? 4 blocks. Yeah, about a quarter mile from us. Shuts his door, turns off his hearing aid, watch TV, take a cruise. But no, this is wrong. This is all wrong. We're gonna adjust this man and what he does for his family, other families, his community that he plays for, just because one person don't like him? No.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Yes, ma'am. Please.
I have never said that I did not like the Spanish music. I do like country and western, but I don't like loud music. I don't care what kind of music it is. And as far as talking about the neighbors to the south of us that have their prayer meeting, I have never one time heard any music coming from that house, ever.
Okay.
And I've never, I don't know. I don't understand.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Gamble. Sir? Please give us your name and address, and we'll have you swear in.
Roger E. Bartosowicz, common spelling, 125 Merrill Drive.
Sir, do you swear or affirm that your testimony today will be truthful, will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth,
Yes.
under penalty of law?
Yes, sir, sure do.
Write that down.
I live at 124 Merrill Drive, 5 houses down from the gentleman in question. I guess you all know my past background. Well, I have more people coming to me complaining about the Gamble family, calling them and saying, hey, why are they why they told us to take the name off the petition, don't do this. The people that they're talking about the prayer meeting came to me and said, we know you're retired and all this. Why can't we have a prayer meeting in the backyard? I goes, what? Have 2 or 3 prayer meetings in a backyard. That's none of their business. I mean, how loud is a prayer meeting? We're wasting the city of Clovis's time. We're wasting you guys' time. And I don't know how many names are on a petition, but one complaint out of all of them? You got more noise variances with the cars and the motorcycles and the gunshots at night. Why aren't we complaining about that? Didn't mean to take up your time, but, you know, enough's enough. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. One more time, Mr. Gamble.
I'm sorry for your time. I did go across and talk to Paul, and I waved my hands in his garage door, and I said, Paul, you gotta shut it down. You're blasting me out of the house. I never used a cuss word ever. The neighbors to the south of us that have, Frank is a preacher. They have stuff in their backyard all the time. We've never said a word against them. As far as I know, they're good neighbors. Their kids throw stuff into my backyard all the time. I pick it up and throw it back for them. Their guests park in our front of our house. We don't care. I don't know where this came from. I did ask Frank if he had signed the petition. He said he didn't know. I've never called anybody on the phone in the neighborhood. My wife did call Peggy McDaniel because they've known each other for lots of years, and she said yes, she did sign it, but there was no hard feelings. So again, I'm sorry for your time, and I appreciate you listening.
Mr. Gamble. Mr. Gamble,
Mr. Gamble.
Over here.
got one more question for you. Do you think if they turn down their music some, that y'all could compromise and possibly make this work out?
They have never been able to turn it down yet. I've asked. I talked to Paul. Yes, we visited back and forth across the street, and yes, he did help me put a trailer hitch on. He volunteered to help me. I changed trailer hitches on my pickup, and he come over and helped me put it on. We had no problem visiting back and forth until the band just kept on and on and on. And I asked him to quieten it down. I asked him to take it out of the neighborhood. And when he wouldn't, I got mad. I went over and waved my hands in his door, and I asked him to shut it down. He didn't bother to do nothing. He didn't even hesitate to slow down playing. He just kept right on going. But again, I guess I'm a bad guy.
Okay. All right, Mr.
But
Gamble.
thank you.
One last time.
Okay, this should settle all down, okay? He's complaining about the neighbor's kids throwing crap into his backyard. His neighbor don't have no kids.
Yeah, I didn't hear him complain about that. I didn't hear him complain about that.
His comment was, with the neighbors next door, even when their kids throw their crap in his backyard, he picks it up and throws it back. How's he throwing crap back when there's no kids that live there?
Okay.
No,
All right.
this is.
Thanks, Mr. Lopez. All right. Okay, that's it. That's enough. I think we've all heard plenty. Commissioners, I would entertain a motion to exit the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, I have more than enough. I have a motion from Commissioner Burns and a second from Commissioner Paula. Commissioners, please vote. And by a vote of 7 in favor and 1 vote opposed, the motion is carried and we have ended the public hearing. And now we're back to the item. Is there any debate?
Maybe the chief can answer a question. I know there's been some, I know the police have been called, well, I'll wait till he gets up here. Chief Ford,
Mayor Pro Tem,
I
Mayor,
know
Council.
I know the police have been called on this situation
Yes, sir.
Numerous times. Has there been a citation issued?
There has not
for
been
loud
a
music?
citation issued at this point, no.
Okay.
He has been spoken with.
Has the music been too loud?
From the information, like they've said, there have been officers that have responded and have dealt with and asked them to turn it down, yes.
Okay. Has he turned down the music?
They've turned it down, but I know there's been recalls on it also.
Okay. So how many times?
What I'm showing from our call logs is we had 5 calls for service.
5 calls.
Yes, sir.
Within what period of time?
From, I believe the first one was in May. And it was until the last one I'm showing on our call logs was October 12th. And then the other one was actually by the petitioner on October 23rd requesting information on the noise ordinances and what they said.
Okay. Has multiple people called in complaining about this?
I know that Ms. Burrows had shared with you the one complaint that she received on email. I received 1 or 2 anonymous complaints from people in reference to this. And the calls for service that we're showing on this are, let me look through them real quick. At this point are I've got a couple that I do not have names, and I have a couple of them that are from Mr. Gamble, so a couple of them were anonymous calls for service.
Okay.
'Cause people can call in and make the complaint, not have to leave anything.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? Thank you, Council.
May I make a comment, please, on that, what he said?
No, we've closed the public hearing. Yeah. What is the will of the commission?
I make a motion that we deny the request.
Okay. We have a
Second.
Motion to deny by Commissioner Burns and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Bryant. Commissioners, what is before you is a motion to deny the noise variance request at 105 Merrill Street. Please vote. The vote is 6 in favor and 2 opposed. The motion to deny the variance request at 105 Merrill Street has been approved. And the motion carried. Next, item 2 under new business is request for approval to form a task force to recommend amendments to the City of Clovis's Local Economic Development Act ordinances. And I'll advise on this. Commissioners, as you know, on November 2nd, the voters approved by a 73% margin, approved adopting the new state law, which allows us to, allows a community like ours to support retail as economic development. So with the permission of the voters to now treat retail development as economic development, we now have the task of actually shaping that policy. And in order to do that, my thought is that we call on the EIB to appoint from within themselves a smaller working group that would include 3 EIB members. This is in your packet on page 118. The task force would consist of three voting members of the Economic Incentive Board, and those three would be decided on by the Economic Incentive Board. We would also ask 2 members of the Chamber of Commerce Board who are engaged in the retail industry to serve, and a member of Clovis Industrial Development Corporation to be decided on by CIDC. And then lastly, we would ask the president of the community college, Dr. Wonquo, to serve. And so that's what I'm proposing as the task force to do the work of shaping the policy that we would have the full EIB board consider and then recommend to you at some point. Is there any discussion?
Second.
Motion to approve the formation of the task force to recommend amendments to the Economic Development Act ordinances, and that task force being what I just mentioned. That motion for approval came from Commissioner Casals, and the second came from Commissioner Paula. Commissioners, please vote. By a vote of 8-0, the motion is carried. Thank you very much. Looking forward to getting that work underway. Item 3, under new business, request for approval of commission, board, and committee assignments. Ms. Burrows.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Commissioners. As you know, Commissioner Leo Lovett is no longer with us on the City Commission, and he's been replaced by Commissioner Burns. And as is our practice, when we have a new commissioner, we just review the boards and committees that you have, and a copy of that is in front of you this evening for your discussion and action. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Ms. Burrows. Commissioner Burns. The commissioner that you replaced was actually serving on several committees and boards. We have a limited number of options here. If you were willing to simply assume those seats, that of course would be acceptable.
I would be happy to do that.
Okay. Okay. All right. Do we need to read those off? Okay. You will. You're agreeing to simply taking on the committee and board assignments that Commissioner Lovett had, and I need a motion.
Make a motion.
Motion to approve the committee, commission, board, and committee assignments as we just discussed from Commissioner Madrid.
Second.
Second from Mayor Pro Tem Bryant. Commissioners, please vote. By a vote of 8-0, the motion is carried. Thank you very much, Commissioner Burns. Appreciate that. Monthly investment report as we move on to reports of boards, officers, and committees. Ms. Melanson.
Thank you again, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and Commissioners. Yes, Commissioner Riley, give me brief. October 31st, we started with 52.3 million, ending at 53.6 million. Brief overview, General Fund 1, ending cash of 6.3 million. Solid Waste Fund 2, 2.3 million. Our Wastewater Fund 10, 4.6 million. Our Economic Development Gross Receipts Fund 64, 3.3 million. Our Water 1/4% Gross Receipts Fund 66, 4.8 million. Our Drainage Improvement Fund 88, 1.3 million. Our cash in bank is $30,400,000. Our state investment pool continues at $23.2 million. Our interest for the month is $36,000. Our 4-month interest is $14,581. State pool is up from last month to 0.06. And I received gross receipts this afternoon. We are 17.71% above this time last year. We're not looking at 2 years ago because that was part of that major increase that we received from the retailer that had a corrected receipt. We are 23.42% above our budgeted for the first 5 months. And for the internet, or for the number of new businesses, we had somewhere, a lot more. Here it is, sorry. We had an additional 1,757 businesses report this month from this time last year. So we know that with the destination gross receipts requirements and the internet, that it's still a very fluid transition. So while, yes, we are up significantly, we do know that, and there was one for the food and drink hold harmless that had a major re-reporting this time, so that one was significantly down. So we know that over the next few months, there will still be some reporting changes for people realizing that they have not filed in the proper destination. So I'm highly optimistic, but our numbers are still subject to change as companies learn the new laws.
Sure, sure. Well, thank you for that, Ms. Melanson. Exciting report. How many new reporters?
1,757.
Wow.
Which is up another 327 from last month.
That's great.
So.
That's great. Hopefully the internet gross receipts tax continues to benefit us. Looking forward to that. Any questions for Ms. Melanson on the investment report? Thank you for that report. Appreciate it. The Animal Control Task Force has taken up meeting again. We held our first meeting, and it was more or less a introductory type meeting where we discussed the challenges with animal control and kind of what the subsequent meetings would look like. And we're going to meet next on November 29th, which is a change from when what we had decided at that meeting. And that'll be at 5:15 on November 29th at the City Hall Assembly Room. Thank you for that. We will be reporting back as to the progress with Animal Control Task Force. Hopefully we'll have some good progress. Lodgers Tax Advisory Board, is there a brief report on that?
Yes, we have 5 requests, and one of them is from the Force 01 MMA event. It's going to happen on the 23rd of April at the Curry County Event Center. The Clovis Community College Art Series will have an event this Sunday, the 21st, at the new Norman and Petty. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of a sound system we can get from that, how many people will attend that, especially since it's on a Sunday. I'll be interested in going, so we'll see what happens. December the 12th, they're going to have the Mariachi Christmas at 3 p.m. at Marshall Auditorium. February the 5th, World of Musicals at 7 p.m. at Marshall Auditorium. March 5th, Todd Oliver and the Talking Dog. Don't ask me what that is, but it's going to be interesting. This is an outreach program in conjunction with the Clovis Municipal Schools. April the 5th, the Straight Street Ballets, the Jungle Book. That's another program with the Clovis Municipal Schools. March 26 and 27, the Spring Arts and Crafts at the Civic Center. The one that we're hoping is going to bring a lot of people into the community is the original team roping. They're going to have several different events, different times, December 18, January 29th, February 19, April 24th. That will take place at the Curry County Event Center. Again, they expect 200, 300 people participating on the event itself. So it's not telling how many people they're going to bring to the event. And that's it.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Garza. Appreciate it. I'll give you a little bit of a break. I might ask you about planning and zoning, but I'll report on the Eastern New Mexico Water Utility Authority. We held our board meeting this afternoon, just prior to this meeting, and in the course of our meeting, the main new business items were approval of contracts, approval of contracts with our consulting firms, Thompson Consulting as well as Capital Consultants, and then we also approved the annual contract with the legal services for the Water Authority, and of course Cameron Barnett of Harmon, Barnett, and Morris is the attorney for the Water Authority. The other big news with the Water Authority is, of course, the passage of the federal infrastructure bill, which promised the full 75% portion of the federal funding for the Ute Pipeline project. And this has created a very exciting, very challenging time with the authority. And we are meeting very frequently and working through what all of that means. We expect a spending plan from the federal government, from the Bureau of Rec in the next 60 days, which will help us understand more clearly what that federal funding structure is going to look like, how it's going to flow, and that will help us in our strategy of approaching the state for their 15% share in this. And then, of course, we're also talking to the member communities, us being one of them, about our share, which you may know, but the planning has already been in place to enact a mill levy, which will take care of our membership share from the city of Clovis. But it's all good news with the authority. Exciting time, exciting challenges, but we have the right team in place, whether it be the board or the administrator and staff, or our engineers. We have the right team in place, and so looking forward to advancing that project. Planning and Zoning Commission, we got a pretty exhaustive summary of what the Planning and Zoning meeting was last week. Tonight's meeting, however, is there anything to add to Planning and Zoning?
No, I just need to remind the commission that we need to be careful when we do these zone changes. Otherwise, we're going to wind up with a lot of commercial areas close to residential areas. Be very careful on that. Once they're grandfather, that's it. Nothing we can do about that. So just something to keep in mind. Has nothing to do with no supporting businesses. It has to do with how they approach the whole thing. Neighborhoods can be changed dramatically because of those changes, and we just need to be careful about it.
It's a great point, Commissioner, and certainly appreciate your service on P&Z and the caring and the work that you put into it. We thank you for your service there. Any other reports of boards? Future agenda items? Ms. Burrows?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. We have the sign ordinance. We'll be coming back to you again. We have the agreement for the CDBG grant for the senior center, and we have a liquor license for Guadalajara. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burrows. Announcement of time, or of date, time, and place of city board and commission meetings. The Animal Control Task Force, as I mentioned, will meet at, it's actually scheduled for 5:30 p.m. on November 29th at the Assembly Room at City Hall. Make note that City Hall will be closed next Thursday, November 25th, and Friday, November 26th, for the Thanksgiving holiday. And our next City Commission meeting will be at 5:15 on Thursday, December 2nd, right here in this room. Commissioners?
Mayor?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, may I just make one request
Yes.
prior to adjourning? If I could get any comments that you may have about the sidewalk dining ordinance or the sign code in an email from you, if you have time and have comments. The one I heard today was making the barriers uniform in appearance and size, maybe around, so whatever other comments you have before the next commission meeting would be helpful.
You got it.
I've got a question. Do I understand that Brandon New is helping you in sign ordinances?
No, so the way it worked is we created a draft, we took it to the Planning and Zoning Commission. Brandon New was there at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Planning and Zoning Commissioners asked us to work with Brandon New and other business owners to sort of reach some middle ground. Our initial draft was very restrictive, of course. You don't start out at 1,000 feet and then go down, so that's how it happened.
Okay.
He's providing a lot of input. Commissioners, happy Thanksgiving to you and your families.
You too.
Next week. Appreciate you. It's a pleasure serving with you. We are adjourned.